2030.
Good.
After the Home Office claimed it would only be for 12 months. Not much ambition involved in that, is there, in terms of solving the migrant crisis?
Absolutely, and the way that the Labour government gaslit the public when the migrants were first moved in there, saying, you know, you guys are absolutely being mad. Crowborough is a quiet, leafy town in East Sussex. These people, you can see, have been pushed to their absolute limit. They're not the types that you usually see protesting about this sort of thing. But that town has been absolutely desecrated.
You're ruining the country. Get Keir Starmer out. Look, England's flag. You're useless. Labour Party's useless.
I love our country. And one of the things about our country is good manners. Not very British.
What Labour advisor thought she wasn't going to be heckled at a petrol station in Leeds? Do these politicians actually ever get out and understand what it's like for real working-class people? I thought it was British to exercise a right to free speech. That's what Keith Stalin told Trump. That's what White Van Man was exercising yesterday to Richard III. Oh, yes, I remember. We're not really allowed our right to free speech in case we criticise the government.
You can't blame people so many decades away from you for the chaos that has been caused by Labour.
This is cheap politics, isn't it, Sir Ian?
Well, it's stupid politics. I mean, who raised national insurance on part-time workers? Labour. Who's been the stupid people that have wandered down the road and increased taxes on businesses and on individuals? Labour.
A lot of people get very frustrated, especially when the government says, oh, free school meals, you know, for every kid, not just the kids who really need them, free bus passes, free this, free that. None of it's free. It's subsidised and paid for by the taxpayer. And we're in this constant situation where the government's answer to everything is tax us a bit more, take more of our money, and then give some more of it away generously. It's our sodding money they're giving away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's either someone else's money today, another taxpayer, or even worse, it's the money from our...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you this Monday morning. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to have a listen and a watch, whether, as I say, you're on any of those different routes. I hope you're not under 16, because very soon you might not be able to do it on YouTube. Well, it depends what time of day, doesn't it? We're going to be talking about that social media ban that was announced by the Prime Minister. Too much fanfare and lots of applause in the room from lots of parents who were very supportive. But he's wanting to ban under 16s from most major social media platforms. Face scans used to enforce age limits. All very well. 9 out of 10 parents support him. But is this really about protecting your children? Will it actually protect our children? And do you support it or not? I would love to hear your thoughts. Do get in touch on that. Plus, we're going to be talking about whether or not there is or is not a deal between Iran and the US framework deal to end the war, due to be signed in Switzerland on Friday. Yeah, that's a heck of a lot of time for things to go wrong. Not even understood, really, what's actually in the deal so far, and both sides saying different things, as we know. Also, what's the state of defence? On Thursday, when I was last on air, we had the resignation of John Healey, the Defence Secretary. Since then, with the resignation of his number two, Al Kant, on the Thursday evening. Al Kant is going to be on the show in just 25 minutes' time. We'll get his thoughts after we did see that seizing of that Russian oil tanker by the British Navy. Not quite sure what to do with it now, interestingly. But also, we know that Keir Starmer says he won't commit any more money to the military, according to reports. The new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis, set to receive the same £13.5 billion settlement, 10 billion in real terms over a few years, which prompted John Healey to quit. So is that the poison chalice that actually is going to mean that we simply are not able to defend our borders? Plus, could we see a leadership challenge against the Prime Minister as soon as this Friday, if we do see Andy Burnham becoming an MP again in the Makerfield by-election? We'll be talking about all the candidates' names in the next hour. Right now, though, delighted to say joining me for the entire show is Claire Pearsall former Conservative government advisor. Morning to you.
Morning.
My question to our lovely audience right now is about this ban on under-16s using social media. We'll go into some of the detail on that. Face scans used to enforce age limits. Oh, no, very simple question. Do you support the ban? Do you oppose the ban? And crucially, tell us why, because I don't think that people who oppose the ban are necessarily going, yeah, I want kids sitting on social media all day, every day, in their bedrooms till 2 a.m, on YouTube, being, I don't know, contacted by paedophiles and sexting pictures of themselves. I don't think that. Probably some people think that. I don't know. Those are probably the people we're trying to protect our children from, aren't they? But 9 out of 10 parents support this. Do 9 out of 10 parents actually understand the implications of this? And could 9 out of 10 parents do a better job of parenting their own child? Or do we need to make it easier for them? In the same way we're making it easier for schools, like strict instructions. Can't have kids on their phones at all at any point during the school day. Make it simple, make it clear. So much easier for parents to enforce these things if there isn't the peer pressure from all of your kids' friends at school. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Also message us on X at talkTV while you're still allowed to. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost 1. Standard network rate message. Claire Pearsall, at the risk of this looking like a Mumsnet meeting, which is always very like Mumsnet, very, very clear. They've issued a statement saying they fully support this. An awful lot of lots of people in the room with the Prime Minister, a lot of cheering, parent support, lots of charities and others, a lot of parents who've been bereaved, who've lost their children, who they believe have been basically seen horrific things on social media, being bullied or being encouraged, to self-harm, goodness knows what. And I completely understand and sympathise. I'm never of the view that, sadly, that, bereaved, grieving parents are the best people to be writing legislation. I'm old-fashioned like that. It seems to me the timing of this announcement, it's only 3 weeks after that 3-month consultation. The Prime Minister said they're looking at doing something, but it was going to wait until they had the evidence from Australia. Well, Australia brought a ban in 6 months ago, and it hasn't worked because 6 out of 10 children in Australia are still on social media. So unless they've got their big workaround on that, I'm not quite sure how this works. Is this more about, I'm facing a leadership challenge at the end of the week, I'm going to look like Mr. Man getting stuff done, trying to be Mr. Populist. I'd call this populist Prime Minister. Is that what this is about? Is it, some people are saying, a way of bringing in digital IT by the back door?
I think it's two things. It is desperate to have some kind of legacy and also desperate to take attention away from the fact that he lost a Defence Secretary and an Armed Forces Minister last week. So it's like, put something out there, look at this, don't talk about anything else.
Seize an oil tanker.
Seize an oil tanker.
Forceful.
Look in this direction, everybody, because it's much more interesting. But I also do worry that it is bringing in digital ID by the back door. Yeah. That threat has been there for a while.
And this is the concern of digital ID, by the way, when it was popular until people actually learnt a little bit more about it. We're going to be talking at midday to Silky Carlo, who's director of Big Brother Watch, who knows her stuff on this front, is also a new mum and will care about this stuff. And again, it's really interesting, even seeing some of the supposedly neutral analysis on some of the broadcasters. This idea that completely hardline, free speech advocates. I'm not an absolutist on free speech, and I absolutely think that in terms of what our children could do. Listen, I'm a 1950s parent. I think that's why my kids turned out quite well. I'm very strict. There's no, is your name on the mortgage deeds? No, then you don't get a say. That's how it works in my house. I'm sorry. I'm not my child's best friend. No. The liberal parenting, none of that rubbish. I think kids need clear, firm boundaries. Parents are in charge. I think that's what makes them do well, and it's what makes them happy, and it turns them out as functioning members of society. Old-fashioned like that. But it's proven to work. And when I say, I don't mean someone who goes around like hitting their kid or anything like that. I'm just talking about they need to know what the rules are. I think a lot of this problem is a lot of parents, we've discussed this a million times, simply don't do their job of parenting. But I also understand, look, I only had one. Yeah. Was it down to her friend group, was it? Or was it down to, if your kid is getting pressured at school, you can't be the only kid not on the social media group. You wouldn't even know when they were going out because you wouldn't have the messages if you're not on... What are they on? Insta, Snapchat, whatever it is they're on this week that they're messaging each other on. But there's so the helping parents, so that it's not the norm, so that it's normal for your kid not to be on this stuff. That's good. Why do you think this is about digital ID by the back door?
Because it's only, at the moment, we're only looking at some applications, not all, just some of them. And
well, X is included, but not Blue Sky.
Absolutely, which I found, an interesting decision.
Blue Sky, if you don't know, I mean, they think that X is now the work of the devil because Elon Musk owns it, and Blue Sky is heaven.
The opposite end.
Because it's a complete bunch of lefties.
But they talk about, rabbits and bunnies and fluffy things, don't they? I mean,
apparently also quite a lot of paedophiles on there.
Yes, but we're not allowed to mention things like that because it's a safe space for people. I mean, it is ridiculous. If you're going to have a social media ban, then ban all of them. But I do worry that you start to then get into the fact of, if I want to use X, which I do, am I going to have to produce my ID to prove that I'm old enough? Is that then going to have to follow on to other social media that I'm on, other accounts? The government is just going to look at the internet and it's going to be a state-sponsored internet. Yeah. That's my concern.
They're going to approve. And this is the thing, I probably, a few years ago, would have been quite trusting after what happened in lockdown and the shutting down of information. If we hadn't had X, and even then they were shutting a lot of it down, if we hadn't been able to share things on YouTube and the like, I don't think we'd have got out of lockdowns as soon as possible. No. Our kids would still be in masks. I mean, seriously, there's a bunch of lunatics. If you look at everything on the COVID inquiry, seriously, they still think that everything they did was right, pretty much. Other than they were all bitching about, Matt Hancock or Boris Johnson. I mean, genuinely, no lessons have been learned by this by our scientific, political or whatever class. And you think about things like, lots of information on Southport. The Southport attacks, information about that horrific attempted beheading in Belfast last week. Do you think that we would have known about that if there hadn't been a video that went viral? I don't think we would. No. I think that would have just been a stabbing in Belfast we wouldn't have known much about.
No, I think you're right. And my child is of the older category. He's 17, calls me a dictator at home, by the way, so you can sense my parenting style. But he gets a lot of his information from TikTok, and he will quite often...
there you go, there's your problem.
Yeah, it is, but he will often bring things to me and say, look, I've seen this, what do you think? And it provides an actual basis for a conversation, and some of it is really good information.
But I don't think The Guardian and the BBC should be the arbiters of...
No, they absolutely shouldn't. He and I have a discussion as to why it's a rubbish piece of information or it's a good piece of information. Then you have that discussion.
What's the source for it? What's the evidence for it? Well, this is it. We know the government doesn't make decisions rightly, and we know also neither do social media companies. I don't trust either of them in terms of their shutting... They've shut down debate on climate change on media. Yes. And BBC shut that down as well. They've shut down debate for years on whether or not a man was a woman. I mean, you were literally thrown off. I mean, that was before Elon Musk owned X, so it was all fine then. But it is interesting. So we're going to have a situation. This is what's utterly bizarre. We're going to have 16-year-olds who can have sex but can't look at a porn video. I'd rather they weren't looking at porn video, but they can have sex. They can ride a moped. At 16, didn't know that. That's too soon. But they couldn't watch, like, say, a video on YouTube after 8:30. That they can. Well, the Prime Minister wants them to be able to vote in elections at 16, but they actually wouldn't be allowed to watch the results because they come in, well, even the exit poll at 10 p.m. and they'd have a curfew at 8:30 p.m. I mean, it's utterly bizarre. The thing is, how do you enforce, even if this was all a good thing, how would you enforce this? Parents are already letting their kids on social media at 10, 11, 12, and even before that. I mean, frankly, the parents who are letting their kids, apparently most kids are looking at YouTube videos regularly at the age of 3. Sorry, parents, you are not doing your job properly. It is that. It's really that simple. Your child, and there's a problem with the algorithms, which they just, you watch something, you show any interest in something. I have to show interest in some quite dodgy stuff to do my job, and then you get inundated with that stuff. And I keep defaulting back, certainly on my X feed, defaulting back to people I follow because I've chosen those people who will sift the news for me, the stuff I need to know. And I follow people who they are a good conduit for that stuff. But I get sent ridiculous amount of stuff. The algorithms are a problem for adults as well as children, as far as I'm concerned. Surely we can have some rule that, that these algorithms are changed. That could be a minimum thing. But the main thing is, we already have Google and Apple phones, so Android phones and iPhones, already have a child option, which parents can use. The trouble is kids can get around it, but your average 12-year-old is more tech savvy than your average parent. We know that.
Yeah, they are.
But then they're going to get around this as well, as they've done in Australia. So it won't work.
No, and there's also things that you can do as a parent with your broadband.
You could talk to your kids.
Yeah, but with your
talk to your kids.
you could buy a book.
Buy a book, chat with kids, play sport with them. I mean, you could do that. That would help.
That is a lot of help. If you are inside on a rainy day, you can also put restrictions on your broadband. I had Broadband Shield on mine for a long time to stop those sites coming up, and it pops up on my device as to whether I want to allow him to look at
So that gets round the... Does that stop the VPN?
Yes, no, yes, because he found a way around it.
Of course
because
he did.
he's a teenager.
He's a teenage boy. It's literally his job to find a way around it.
It is completely his job. So I'm not sure what you're going to have. What, police officers coming round to your house saying, I noticed it's, you know, 8:35 that your child was on TikTok.
How is it being enforced? I mean, that's the thing, because there is an element where, you know, the law is, you know, if we're not enforcing not giving your 8-year-olds cigarettes and booze at the home. No one's going to see it. But we don't enforce that in that sense because no one sees it. I mean, I think we should be enforcing a bit more, don't feed your kid so your kid is obese. I mean, I think that's a bit... No, I mean, I think that should be totally socially unacceptable, and it should be something that parents should be shamed for, because I genuinely think that you have to do that to make it clear this is not this is not... There's lots of different ways to parent. No, sod off. No, there aren't, actually. There are lots of different ways to parent badly. There are actually only a couple of good ways to parent well. And I'm sorry, it's really well documented and it's really well evidenced. And the stuff in terms of the hours that kids spend on social media. But, I mean, you know, locking devices... But again, that's about parents. But I keep hearing all this stuff, and Radio 4 is inundated with people saying, well, you know, your kids will just get angry with you if you're like... Sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, what? These are the same people that said we can't have sweets by the till in supermarkets because their kids will pester them to buy them. Have you heard of the word no? I mean, and the reason why your kids don't understand the word no is because you're one of the no, oh, all right then. If you're a no, all right then parent, there's your problem, nothing else. But that said, I do get how hard it is, especially when your kids are older. You're not sitting over your kids all the time. You're working parents, and nothing wrong with that. You know, but that you can't be on top of everything all the time. The peer pressure from the schools, what is normal. We need to denormalise it. I don't think our kids should be a product for the social media companies. No, they shouldn't. But unfortunately, they are now the tech generation. I mean, they know more than we will ever catch up and know. And I think I'm all right on tech. But if anything goes wrong, my mum's got a problem with her phone. She'll message me. I go, oh, call your granddaughter, for God's sake. She's gonna...
Oh, yeah, the 17-year-old fixes a lot of tech issues in our house. But you can't take away from the parents that it is their job to do it, it isn't the state's. And a lot of the argument seems to be, well, as long as there's a law, then parents can say to their child, oh, it's not me doing it.
That does make it easier. But there is that risk, again, the ID, because the only way to establish that someone is a child...
Yes.
And not an adult, and therefore not entitled to having a free, you know, access to social media, is for basically, oh, look, everybody ends up having to prove that they're not a child. Exactly. And then you have to give your ID. Nothing to fear, nothing to hide. What's the problem? Yeah, they say that about a lot of things. The trouble is, again, and I say this as someone who carried out, as her job as a journalist, lots of journalists didn't do their job during lockdown. I did try to do mine. We were the only station during this first year and a half here. You were actually fighting a lot of this stuff, the impact on our freedoms. And again, not from word go, because I foolishly believed what we were being told. But when I started challenging it, using medical and scientific evidence and economic evidence, they took our YouTube page down, and my details, I go on about this, but it's important. My details, I'm a law-abiding citizen doing my job as a journalist, holding government to account over the biggest event of my and your lifetimes. And my government passed my details to a counter-terrorism unit in the US because I was querying lockdown. Do you trust these people to have a say over what you or your child can and cannot see on social media? And my answer to that right now is no. I want to know your answer. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. As I say, Silky Carlo from Big Brother Watch will be here a little bit later about that. I want to also talk about US, Iran, both agreeing. Pakistan said they've been who are very dodgily, in the middle of all this, announced a deal to end these military operations. Trump said, let the oil flow. Oil prices have gone down. This is all good. Got till Friday till something is signed, and that's just a memorandum of understanding, 60 days. I mean, look, not fighting is better, but I miss a moment in time. I'm not sure, even if this is all ended, we're going to be in any better position than we were beforehand in terms of the Iranians will lie to do anything. If they get their sanctions off, they're going to quietly carry on trying to get a nuclear weapon. Of course they will. We're just in exactly the same situation, having seen a massive, damage to Gulf states, Israel, and then a massive hike in our oil price.
Well, I mean, we're no further forwards, and I don't think that any agreement on a Monday morning is going to hold till a Friday signing of a memorandum of understanding. I just don't see it. We've been led up this path too many times. I mean, President Trump, I think at least 37 or 38 times now has led us up
genuinely,
this path. So I will believe it when I see it. I'm glad that there is a ceasefire as such, and it would be great if oil prices came down even further, and then we might see a difference in this country. But I think that one is going to have to wait.
So much more to talk about on the show. We are going to be talking about Andy Burnham apparently going to launch an immediate leadership challenge if he does win the Makerfield by-election. I will read out the rest of the candidates in a few moments' time. We're also going to be talking about the assisted dying bill. It's going to be back. A backbench MP is going to bring a private member's bill, another one to try and get that through to stop the Lords defying the law. They're only blocking the law because it's such bad law, and I'm someone who supports assisted dying. Also, Nigel Farage saying Britain is a two-tier state against white people. And all the claims about Restore Britain and their Nazi links, and Rupert Lowe's support for Tommy Robinson. We're going to talk about all of that. I want your thoughts on all of that as well. 0344 499 1000. But also, while you still can, in a free country-ish, do get in touch and let us know what you think of this social media ban. 0344 499 1000. Your call's up next. After that, we will be talking to the ex-now Defence Minister who resigned along with his boss, and that, of course, is Al Khan's. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:23 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. Claire Pistol is still here. So I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, but you are on the phone lines in your numbers. Thought you might feel strongly about this story about social media ban for under 16s, including a curfew at 8:30 for some websites. Let's go to Gina, who is in Westcliff. Hello, Gina. What do you think?
Hello. Yes, I'm a mum. Hello, I'm a mum of a 12, nearly 13-year-old and a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And I totally do not agree with this ban from somebody who knows exactly what my children are doing on their phones.
You're in the wars right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I was made a point that my son is 29th of July birthday. So once all his friends that are in his year group that are September birthdays to December, they can go on social media. He'll be more isolated than he is you know...
He's basically one of the youngest in the year, and everyone else... Yeah. Oh, my God. That's a very good point. And also, later on, they'll be able to buy cigarettes and he won't be able to because the age restriction... Yeah. I mean, I'm just laughing about that, but it is... I know. Yeah, they've not thought that bit through, yeah.
At the moment, he actually does revision on, like, a Snapchat group with his friends. So
I've got to be honest with you. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Well, anyway, he's not from a local school, so they don't just knock for each other.
Yeah.
That's what they do. That's how they communicate. Yeah. And unfortunately, because they're lockdown babies, that's the only way of ever contacting their friends through social media.
But it's also how we do it. I mean, I'm messaging my team. I'm not picking up the phone. I'm just like messaging the group. They go, "Oh, what about this story? All this? You know, should we do that? Should we try this? Guess this is how adults communicate." But there's a big difference, isn't there, between, "Hey guys, you know, all the lads meeting up and saying, shall we all meet on Saturday at 11 a.m. at the football ground? Yeah, sure. See you there. Who's bringing the the Lucozade or whatever? You know what I mean? That's different from doom scrolling.
That's how they communicate. I mean, like I say, if it wasn't for lockdown, they probably wouldn't have been relying on it so much. But the government made us reliable on that sort of thing. And also, my daughter uses TikTok for it's a platform called Cognito, and it's how she does her science revision, and that she finds that better than something like BBC Bite Size, where she says she can't get the stuff that she needs.
I know a lot of people have been saying there's lots of GCSE revision stuff on YouTube. I mean, these things can be got round, I'm sure, but this is the thing, this whole blanket ban. Would you like some restrictions, and if so, what?
Well, no, I don't. I actually don't, because I think it's like Claire said. I think this is a way of him making sure everybody turns to look at, oh, look at this, don't look at this. He promised to tread lightly on our lives.
Yeah, I know.
This is not treading lightly on our lives. Don't tell me how to parent. I know how to parent my children, and I don't want him to do that for me.
What about the parents who, let's be honest, don't know how to parent their children? The Prime Minister started his statement, he's done a video saying, every parent wants the best for their child. I think that's categorically, provably untrue.
Well, yeah, well, absolutely. But I don't want him telling me what to do with my children.
But we have laws. We have laws about, cigarettes, alcohol, what age a child can have sex.
My kids don't smoke. My kids won't drink. They don't do that because I won't have that in my house. They don't vape.
I hate to tell you.
I don't want them to do that.
I hate to tell you, Gina, I'm going to break this to you as a mother of an older teenager. They will be doing it.
No, they won't. Absolutely.
Good luck with
They're
that.
good kids. Well,
I've got a good kid. They will be doing that.
They won't be doing that.
I hate to tell you.
They might have the odd alcohol, maybe, but they won't.
Were you doing anything your parents were aware of and weren't aware of?
Well, I don't agree with it. That's my opinion.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'm always fascinated by parents who think, no, my kid. Yeah, well, good luck with that. Gina, look, you sound like a parent who knows what they're doing. I mean, that's the thing. As you say, you know how to parent your child better than Keir Starmer knows how to parent your child. Brilliant call. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dee. Jeff is in South Wales. Jeff, what do you want to say?
Hi, Julia. I just had this thought. What a load of rubbish. The children always go against the parents. They always go against the officialdom. Let's look back to when we first introduced, or when Facebook was first introduced. Children were lying about their age just simply to get online. Yeah. And they've done exactly the same for X and... Yeah.
But often it's not even the kids lying. The parents put them on. I know loads of parents who put their kids on Snapchat and Insta and things in primary school, and I think they're all insane.
Ditto likewise. I know loads and loads of children that are now adults that have been on Facebook, etc., for years. And, sometimes they have 3 birthdays a year.
Oh, yeah, do you remember? OK, but, but is the answer then to, so the answer is, well, you have to show ID. You have to prove who you are at your age. But, kids will use someone else's idea, I'm sure. But is your concern that it won't work for kids, or that it won't work for kids and it's also a way of, basically controlling adults eventually as well?
Well, I use Facebook myself quite extensively. And I've been thinking, like, how would we police it? National insurance numbers, digital IDs.
I'm not giving in my personal information to Facebook.
No. It makes me mad. I mean, I've got other views on this this tanker as well. It's just it just seems. I know we're not talking about that at the moment, but America have done it, so we follow suit.
Okay, right. Well, we'll talk about that with my next guest. Jeff, thank you for your call. Appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break. Up next, going to be talking to he resigned on Thursday, Armed Forces Minister Al Carnes. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Claire Pearsall's still here. Delighted to be joined now also by Al Carnes, Labour MP. And until Thursday, when he resigned following his boss, John Healey, out the door from the Defence Department, former Armed Forces Minister Al Carnes. A very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Lots to talk about. I want to get your thoughts, first of all, if I can, on this social media ban. Your party leader, as he still is, said that when he was elected, he wanted to tread more lightly on our lives, and now he's telling us what time our 16-year-olds can look on YouTube at 8:30 in the evening. I mean, is this him treading more lightly on our lives, or is this justified?
Well, I always use a quite simple analogy that when we were young, we would go to the library and we had a free choice to read anything we wanted. Now, when you go to the library, that librarian tells you what you want to read and leads you down any aisle that she wants you to go. And that librarian's either the algorithm or indeed the individuals that are paying for the social media ads on social media. So I think it's actually very pervasive. I think it can be very addictive for children. And I think the more that we can do to not necessarily limit it, but control it, is the right thing. And I think actually the onus is on the big tech companies to ensure they're policing what product is coming out.
I mean, I would definitely say the onus is on big tech companies, but I would like to, for adults as well as children, I don't want someone who's 18 or 38 or 8 to be able to see, to have algorithms pushing, anorexia or trans ideology or self-harm or anything else.
I mean, when we were young, when did you ever see extreme images or extreme violence?
Exactly.
You very rarely saw it. Now, kids under the age of 10 can see anything they want if they swipe left or right. I think it's absolutely bananas. It's a little bit similar, and this can be quite provocative. It's allowing an adult, into your children's bedroom with nobody watching. I think it's absolutely bananas, and we've got to get to control of it.
But, OK, well, we need to get to control of it. But just finally on this issue, do you think the answer is government getting involved and banning children from it when there is such a concern that this could actually lead to basically us having to have digital ID, something which 3 million people signed a petition against?
I mean, the reality is you give up all your ID anyway. Anytime you have a social media account, the data you're giving up on your phone every day for behaviour scrapes, etc., is huge. So I think.
But it can still be anonymised. There are plenty of people who have accounts, and again, we've seen this in Iran, in Russia, people having.
Well, here's an example of anonymised accounts. When the Americans in Israel struck Iran a year ago, when a couple of targets were destroyed in Tehran, it destroyed circa 3% of all Scottish independents' social media.
Yes.
And just let that sink in. 3% of all Scottish independent social media was coming from Iran. Now, are you telling me we have the correct protections in place to protect the hearts and minds of our country and allow us to have that free, balanced and truthful choice?
So should the onus be on dealing with the social media companies as opposed to stopping children accessing it? The problem is what the social media companies are pushing and what they're allowing as opposed to who can access it.
I think it's a combination of both. I think if this ban brings the social media companies to the table to negotiate better protections for our children, in particular, in fact, for everyone, I think that's a good thing. I just want to clear the line on this. It is absolutely ridiculous what we allow our children exposure to. It would be similar to me when I was young, going into a newsagent and then bringing the top shelf of the magazines down to the bottom and saying, crack on, read what you want.
Yeah, in fact, a lot worse than the things that were in those magazines.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the reason why you followed John Healey out the door on Thursday. Many people praising both of you for your principled stance based on, quite simply, the money that was going to be allocated for defence, extra defence spending was nothing like what was promised and was simply not enough to actually keep this country safe. You echoed an awful lot of what John Healey had written in his resonating speech. You also talked about other issues in terms of, how troops, veterans are being treated since they leave the job. But crucially, Dan Jarvis, very well-respected figure, former mixed military man himself, he's now in the job. We understand from the media reports so far, well-sourced, that he is going to be given no more than John Healey was willing to accept, £13.5 billion extra money, but actually only 10 billion in real terms extra cash for the MOD, I think over 4 years. Is that enough? And should any respectable person who's actually been in the military themselves, who understands this stuff, should they be accepting that role on those conditions?
I mean, Dan is a good guy, great experience both in government and in the military, very well respected paratrooper. There's two things to this. One, the settlement isn't enough. But secondly, the defence investment plan as a whole has not been transformative enough. It has not inculcated the lessons from Ukraine. It's preparing for the last war, not the next one. And it's actually missing the critical point, which is about national resilience. It's about every section of society now needs to think about their role within security. And I think it's missed that point. And as a result, hasn't encouraged the Treasury to give more money. The Treasury has put up the barriers, and it looks like we've ended up with the same settlement that was on the table a week ago. And I think you're going to see some very difficult decisions coming over the next couple of months about in-year capability all the way through to the next 5 to 10 years.
But we have the third situation. We've got a Russian oil tanker being seized, something that realistically in the Channel, one of the shadow fleet that's sanctioned under the Ukrainian war, something that we wouldn't realistically be able to do or would not be able to risk doing if there were, as has been previous cases, a Russian military warship with that Russian tanker. We simply do not have the capability to even protect our Air Force base in Cyprus. It is not a question of like, oh, well, can we find the money? We have to find the money, don't we? I mean, it's not even up for debate, but from anyone who understands this stuff, that there isn't any debate, there isn't any question of whether we have to find the money.
We have to find the money, but we must make sure that money is spent in the most effective manner. And we must ensure every penny of taxpaying money is spent on the right capability.
Well, you can't let the MOD be involved then. Our procurement has a very poor history.
The MOD doesn't have the best record on spending money, but also it's usually involved in long-term, very complex weapon systems that take years to build and develop, are outpaced by civilian technology, and therefore always trying to catch up, and that results in huge inflation on cost. And so I would like to see short-term spiral development, learning lessons from Ukraine, and preparing our force for pre-2030 crisis, not post-2030, 35. And I think if you look at the proportions of the spend in the DIP, it's really important that it's left of 2030 for delivery, not after.
Yeah.
And important, I go back to this point, foreign policy affects your gas prices now. The war in the Middle East affects aviation fuel. The war in Ukraine, when it started, affect food inflation. Those conflicts overseas now affect every section of our society. And what I'd like to see is defence becoming, or defence and security and national resilience becoming the central cohering function of government. And so we understand all of our roles to play in national security should we be tested in a crisis in the next 3 to 5 years.
And this is something that the Prime Minister himself, as John Healey, your old boss, pointed out, had actually warned at the Munich Security Conference only a week earlier that we could face, our security intelligence agencies reckon we could face an attack by Russia in 2030, or even before then, and yet we're not prepared. I know we're not prepared. Everyone knows we're not prepared. We are at risk right now. So where does the money have to be found? You have not been shy about making open that, if there's a leadership contest, you would be willing to throw your hat in the ring. Where would you find the money from? What would you cut instead? Or would you tax more, or would you borrow more?
So we often think about welfare warfare. A pound on defence is a pound away from the NHS. I would like to just think about productivity across the country, whether that be handouts, not hand-ups in welfare, whether that be the problem we have with NEETs and the cost that's going to cost us as we move to 2030. And if you combine all of those elements, and if you increase 10% of productivity over the next 2-3 years, guess what? You then have more money you could put into defence. And so things like the Youth Guarantee, which you'll have seen come out by Pat McFadden 2 weeks ago, which is talking about getting kids into apprenticeships, it's talking about paying employers to take on people who aren't in employment. Those types of things are spend to save models. And if you get them right now, in 18 months, 24 months, you'll find that you'll have more headroom that you can put into defence. And this goes back to my point. This needs to be a strategy, not bombs, bullets and battleships seen in isolation.
OK, and I agree with a lot of that. I think you're quite right. It needs to be seen as one. However, if we can increase productivity by 10%, well, that's the word "if" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. If it was so easy, you might think someone might have thought about doing that. You talk about the youth guarantee. I mean, that doesn't. I think it's 6 months, or it may be longer. That doesn't kick in. Frankly, a kid that's already out of work, out of training and education by 6 months, it can already be lost. And also, you've got a government that put up national insurance and the minimum wage to a point where employers can't afford to employ young people, especially inexperienced ones, and then says, "Oh, we'll give you a bonus for hiring the kids." That the government themselves has priced out of the jobs market.
Therein lies a critical point. The reality is when we came into government, the productivity or our service system, whether that be bins, the NHS, etc., was crumbling. The schools were crumbling around teachers. There were pay issues all over the place. It's a really difficult place. And we can always point backwards. Oh, it was much worse prior. We've got to put this right. We needed to raise taxes to get the services back in the right place. What I'd like to see is to make sure those taxes are going to help the most individuals who require the most support, to get them back into work so we can rewrite the ship and get it moving in the right direction. Okay. All of these problems you just mentioned, if you can shave off 3 to 4% of the wastage and get people back into work, get people up and out of a situation because they can't get an appointment in the NHS, is exactly what we need to be doing. But they're long-term problems.
They are. I mean, what do you think?
There's no quick fix for this.
Absolutely. What do you think about, as a military man yourself, what do you think about the prospect of conscription? Lots of liberal democracies across Europe now have conscription of young people, whether it's some sort of national service.
Lots of countries are moving towards conscription.
Should we do the same? That would be quite good for a lot of our young men in particular.
I don't agree with conscription. What I do agree with is some sort of service, not asking what the state can do for you, but what you can do for the state. So imagine this: if you're young and you have an option to work for a charity, for the NHS, for the police, for the fire service, you could go to the armed forces, you could even work for the council, and you have to do a bit of service, but that service could be in anything. I've been amazed as being an MP that our councils, our societies are held up by volunteers who give service back to something they care about. Imagine we imbued that same type of culture in our young people. I think that'd be a fantastic mechanism to break them out of what we just talked about at the start, which is that social media bubble, get them back into social circles, get them out working, get them out contributing, and get them buying into something that is bigger than themselves. Yeah. And I think that's a really important lesson.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about Nigel Farage. He put out a video being very, very critical of him and saying, he's not offering solutions, saying he's sort of part of the problem. Why is Nigel Farage and Reform? Why is he part of the problem?
Well, because they keep pointing to problems and very rarely pointing to balanced, deliverable solutions.
They're offering lots of solutions. The problems they've identified, they have offered solutions to.
I'm sure they have, but what I'm telling you is the practicalities when you hit the reality of the facts, the figures and the governance mechanisms which we have in this country, you're not going to be able to deliver them. Let's be really, really clear. Two-tier policing. I've spoken to lots of police. I'm a massive fan of the police. They are the thin blue line holding between chaos and society. I mean, they literally do an amazing job. When have we ever championed the police from reform? When have we ever stood next to the police and said, hey, we support the police? They want them all to be 6'2" men. We have certain rules and regulations about joining the police. I mean, it's bananas. How about?
Well, I mean, we used to have quite clear rules about the physical needs of the job.
The physical standards, yes, but height maybe not. What I would say is, we should be supporting those that have given up their time and their whole life for service.
They haven't given up their time. They've taken a job. I mean, I'm sorry, it is simply, with all due respect, I've got very good friends who are police officers who I know do a really good job. And I have loads of police officers, and I know we get a lot of calls from ex-cops who've done a fantastic job and want to do the right thing and join for the right reasons. But to claim that all police officers are doing a good job, you've clearly not been paying attention for the last few years.
So, hey, listen, they make mistakes as everybody does. What I'm saying to you is we should be supporting our people who have a sense of purpose and are providing.
We should be supporting people who do a good job, but not all police do a good job. And when they don't do a good job, and when they are led by people who lead to tip policing, we should call it out.
Okay, for every mistake they make, there's probably 300 to 400 successes that they achieved.
So we should ignore the mistakes.
No, where is reform championing the success of the police? When have you heard them stand beside the police and say, I really support what the police are doing here? They've done a fantastic job cracking this criminal gang, holding these people.
Hold on a minute. Are we supposed to... do you stand by everybody who works in the public sector every day and say, oh, well done, you did your job today. Thanks ever so much.
My point is, when you sow negativity and try and sow division and then paint the sky grey and sell you umbrellas, it is not the type of leadership that I wanted to follow or admire.
Is pointing out two-tier policing sowing division?
I've seen this type of leadership in the past, where you have negativity after negativity after negativity, and guess who the solution is? The Messiah arrives. I'm genuinely disgusted when people continue to point out failure after failure after failure and do not provide balanced analysis of the deliverable of services like the police, like the fire service.
But you're saying it's not deliverable because of the system we've got. But if Reform were elected as the next government or as part of a coalition, Reform with a Democratic mandate would be entitled to deliver on that. It shouldn't be the system preventing
I'm talking about the mechanism of which you try and highlight issues and then present solutions. What I don't see from Reform is them standing next to some of these people that they continually criticise and saying, actually, they've made a mistake here. There is a requirement for a review and we must get through it. But I'd also like to thank the police for doing an excellent job at stopping the riots, doing this, breaking this criminal gang, doing the hard work they do day in, day out. And I think we take it for granted.
Can you tell me something that this Labour government, of which you were until Thursday a senior member, can you tell me one thing that this government has actually achieved? You're talking about getting stuff done, proper solutions.
I come from a relatively humble background in Aberdeen, was brought up when I got to the end of my schooling, I had a couple of choices. I go to the rigs, I go to the military, I go slightly awry. I think the two-child benefit cap will bring 450,000 children out of poverty. In Birmingham, for example, we have some of the highest child poverty rates in Europe. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that in this country, in this day and age, and a member of the G7, that we have poverty like we do in some areas that are completely and utterly deprived.
But these parents could just go and get a job, couldn't they? Most of these parents do not have two working parents.
When I was in the military, my empathy levels were relatively low. I won't lie. And I may have actually replicated what you just said there. But I've sat in surgeries in Birmingham and I've had people come and sit in front of me that have tried to get a job, that have found themselves in dire circumstances, that are living in their car because they can't get a house, or they can't find a job, or they can no longer pay their way. And I just don't think that black and white answer works.
No, I'm really sorry. The vast majority of parents who are claiming you need to claim for a third child or more are parents who do not have two working parents in the household. There are people that is government statistics.
Branding everybody the same.
I'm not branding everybody the same. I'm just saying I've got people listening to this show right now. You'll have voters. They go out, two parents go out to work. They're just making ends meet. They're supporting their own kids. They're paying tax, and you're asking them to pay for parents who don't go out to work.
All day. What I'm saying is, I agree that we need to help people get back into work. I completely.
How does that help them get back into work?
If you let me finish, I fundamentally agree with you, but I also disagree with your analysis that they're all the same. The
didn't say
reality
they're all
is
the
we
same.
have large chunks of this population that are stuck in a rut that can't get out. So there's an analogy. If a flower is wilting, is it the flower's fault? Absolutely not. It's the environment in which you put them in. I know because I came from a relatively rough background when I was young, and I saw people left and right of me go awry.
Did your
And
parents
the trouble
work?
is that the environment.
Did your parents work?
My mum worked, but this
And
is
put
not
food
the
on the
point.
table, exactly.
This is not the point. No, hold on a second. You're now jumping around trying to score political points.
I'm not
What
scoring political points. I
what
think
I'm
the
trying to
two-child
say to
benefit
you-
cap is a good policy.
I'll let you finish. Go on.
I think it's a good. Just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're trying to score political points. They're making their point.
Talk. Off you go. Go.
No, I told you that's what I think.
Oh, sorry, I heard you because there was too much talking going on. Say again.
You're saying that like you keep misrepresenting me, saying you're saying these people are the same. I'm saying categorically on government-owned figures that a lot of the people, the majority of the people who are needing this extra money, do not have two parents in work, even one parent in full-time work. That's why they haven't got enough money. They should go out and get a job and feed their kids, or they should have fewer kids. That's what most of the British population think.
And so what I'm saying to you is I agree we should help people get into work, but when they can't, or they are stuck in a system, we need to provide them capability and capacity to bring their children up in the right way. And I think that's a good thing. And so I think we're agreeing on a percentage point, but I'm saying we should give people a hand up, not necessarily a hand up.
Well, all right, then just one final question, really simple one, because I know we're late on time. Do you think you'd be a good Prime Minister?
I think anyone who thinks that the Prime Ministerial job is easy is nuts. I think it's one of the hardest jobs ever. I think we've got particularly hard headwinds at the moment with the Middle East, Ukraine, and some of the situations in the country. It's about leadership, and I think people need to, whoever's going to be in that job needs to be really, really bold, have an honest conversation with the population where we need to go, and we've got to right the ship in the next 3 years. I'll tell you what will happen. You'll end up with a right-wing party in charge in Scottish independence by 2031, and the nation will break apart.
Do you think you're the man who to prevent that happening?
I don't think anyone singular can do that. It's all about the team. The teamwork makes it.
Could you lead that team?
I'm very good at leading teams. I'm not sure the capacity and capability to change the system in that course over 3 years. It's going to be a very difficult and heavy lift.
Would you be the best person at doing that, though?
It's a good rapid-fire question session. I like it.
I'm trying to get you to answer the question.
I have been... Few organisations in the world take years out to train individuals in leadership. One of those is the military. I understand how to lead, but that leadership is in a military context, but some of it is applicable into my government role. I hopefully proved that in the last 2 years, but that's in a junior ministerial role, not in a cabinet role. Okay. What I would say as we move forward, it is an exceptionally difficult lift to change the course of the country and get it going. We need to be really bold. You need to run this country like you're going to lose it.
Oh, God, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Let's end on a note of agreement. Outcomes. Absolutely fascinating to talk to you. I'm sure a lot of my my audience are really interested in what you've had to say as well. Really hope you'll come back on again. Al Khan's a Labour MP, former Armed Forces Minister. I'm going to get Claire Pearsall's thoughts on that after a break. 10:52 is the time. We'll take a quick break now. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. I'm going to be really ruthless to Claire because I've gone so over time with archives. I've got to get straight to our next guest. He is Serge Sefai. He's executive head teacher at St Thomas the Apostle School and is here to join us to talk about the social media ban that the Prime Minister has long awaited, has announced this morning. Serge, thank you so much for joining us, and apologies we've come so late to you, but what do you make of what the Prime Minister announced this morning about the social media ban for most of the major sites for under 16-year-olds? Will it work?
Let's start with the positive.
Yeah.
We start with the positive for a change. Good. Something's got to be done.
Yeah.
However, the issues will be, I don't like bringing in rules that aren't enforceable. So let's hope he can find one advisor. I know you have an awful lot on your channel. I don't know where they dig them up from, these advisors, but let's hope he manages to talk to someone who has something to do with children. That would be a plus.
Yeah.
So let's start from a school's point of view. Year 11. They hit 16 at different times throughout the year.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to say, my schools, it's not an issue because guess what? We collect them in every morning and we come back at the end of the day.
Of course you do. You're a good head teacher. Of course you do.
That's a common sense act that seemingly has escaped an awful lot of people. We've got to find out what the police do. They come across clearly a youngster in the road with a phone. What are they going to do? Let's have a little chat about that one. So,
well, they've got no right to see the child's phone unless they've got good reason a crime is being committed.
Well, who knows? Maybe the way they walk around with them anyway.
Yeah.
You might suspect they're up to no good looking at the phone. There's a few things here. So first and foremost, let's make Ofsted involved. Let's sort out schools. We can enforce that.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
Hasn't the government already announced that everyone
they can announce it? Well, Ofsted clearly haven't got the message. There's no clear indication from Ofsted that if they walk into a school and they see phones out at different times of the day, that it will be frowned upon.
Yeah, well, schools should be failed automatically on that, because if you can't control that, you're not in control of what's going on. But this is the issue. It's hard enough for teachers, and you only got them for, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Harder enough for parents. I mean, again, this wasn't an issue in my home, but I know lots of parents who I think are good parents, who are doing their best, who are engaged. They're not the ones who just go on your phone, I don't want to see you for the next 5 years. They're doing their best. Would it be easier for parents if we did have some sort of ban? So even if the kids could get round it, there is still that the parents could go, but it's the law.
Yeah, it's the law. It's a little bit of empower in the home, which is badly needed. Some parents give up too easily. We know that about all sorts of things. I would go further, and actually let's start telling parents. I mean, I do it in my office all the time. I've got a child coming up, they're getting behind in their work, and the first thing the parents say to me, they're on their phone all the time.
Well, there's a solution.
But it's worse than that, Julia. It's worse than that, because I've seen them walk in on their phone. I've seen them walk down the corridor staring into their screen.
Yeah, of course.
And, then I have to sit down. Obviously, I ask the child to leave the room and say, look, are you telling me you're going to be able to tell a 15, 16-year-old to get off the phone when they see you on it 24/7? Yeah. So let's have a common sense conversation. Let's have some proper guidelines for everybody involved. And of course, I'm leaving the IT companies till last.
But you're talking about guidelines or laws. I mean, this is the thing. There's already an option for both Android phones and Apple phones, iPhones. They already have kids versions where you can limit things and parents can put on curfew. That all exists. But
I couldn't agree more. So we've got the law. We've got the law for the kids. Now, we haven't got a law against bad parenting, have we?
No, sadly not.
All right, sadly not. So let's try and use some social influence. I don't know what. So that's why I'm talking about guidelines. They're for the parents, not the kids. Kids, let's bring up kids properly for a change. Let's tell them what to do until they're old enough to make their own decisions.
There's a mad idea.
Yeah, there's a mad idea, isn't it? Amazing. But I've said lots of times, as adults, and we're the problem. Yep. We've long since abdicated our responsibility towards bringing up children properly. It's been going a long time. It certainly struck me during COVID when we've ended up with a situation where the people who are less likely to get affected by a virus gets most affected.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Maybe I'm blaming the advisors again, am I?
Yeah, that sounds like you are, very, very wisely. Serge Sefai, I hope you'll come on again. I'm sorry it was so short, but so sweet. A lot of common sense there. Oh, I'd send my kid to school any day of the week. Executive Head at St Thomas the Apostle School. I promise, Paul Clare has been sitting here for half. I promise I'm going to get your thoughts on what all of those guests have said. So many interesting things and so many interesting calls from you coming up as well. Do keep your calls coming in. 0344 499 1000. Going to talk more about the social media ban. In an hour's time, we're going to be talking to Silky Carlo, the director of Big Brother Watch. She says, look, this isn't about protecting children. This is about basically interfering in our lives. Are we just on the way to digital ID? Is there a way of dealing with this without doing that? We're going to talk about defence spending, the Makerfield by-election, you name it. Give us a call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense. It's 2 minutes past 11, fast approaching 3 minutes past. You need it to be that exact at this time of day, do you not? This is Talk, we are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thanks for joining us. Have we got a rip-roaring show for you? There's a heck of a lot going on today. Not only are we talking about, the US and Iran apparently announcing some sort of deal to end military operations in the Middle East. Will that actually come to any fruition? Keir Starmer this morning at 8:10 announced his ban on under 16-year-olds from major social media platforms. We're going to be talking to Silky Carlo from Big Brother Watch about the digital ID implications of that coming up. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Just been talking about defence spending, defence implications, and of course the leadership prospects for Keir Starmer, very much tied into that social media announcement and the seizing of that oil tanker yesterday. Do you not think? But we talked about all that with Al Carnes. We've got Kemi Baig, not the Tory leader. She's about to make his speech on defence spending. In fact, about to start any moment of now. And meanwhile, the Court of Appeal is currently deciding on a Home Office appeal against. I've lost track now. Which one this is? Oh, this is on the Palestine Action status and whether or not they are prescribed organisations. So keep on a rocking, everybody. Lots and lots to talk about. Plus, also, what is going on in Makerfield and, well, huge big attacks on Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe's outfit, who were looking set on the current polls in Makerfield to be basically taking away the chance of a Reform MP beating Andy Burnham, and the likelihood that Andy Burnham, if he does become the next Labour MP for Makerfield, that he's launched a leadership challenge against her Prime Minister immediately. I promise in this half hour I will read out the names of all of the Makerfield candidates. Delighted to say joining me right now is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor. I've put her on mute for the last half hour with our guest. Apologies for that. Got to talk about social media first. This case I wanted to ban under 16s from major social media platforms. Interesting to talk to that head teacher just a few moments ago, saying, look, we need to get kids off their phones. We need to get them off of social media. He's a head teacher. They don't have them at schools and things. But you're talking about kids being stopped by the police in the street. What about the kids who, halfway through year 11, I mean, a mum called up about this an hour ago, didn't you? Yeah. Some of them are 16, some of them aren't 16, so suddenly everything's being organised. Who are we kidding? The kids get round this stuff. But he was saying, look, parents are basically the issue, and we need to give parents more tools. But fundamentally, parents are part of the problem, and the parents calling out for this, they are part of the problem. They're sitting on their phone going, isn't it terrible? Kids are on their phones while they're literally looking at their phone.
But parents have tools already. There is enough legislation around, there is enough information around as to how damaging some of these sites are, and it shouldn't take a genius to work out that pornography is not for anybody under the age of 18. I mean, there are some that like it, but not at that age. So I think
certainly not the stuff. It's not the stuff that we saw in the dodgy magazine we found in the park.
No,
this is not that stuff. They are seeing some really heinous stuff.
They are, and that's going to have a devastating effect on relationships if boys or girls believe that those things are to be norm. But the government is looking to use a massive sledgehammer in a year's time to crack this very small nut. And I don't understand why...
Is it a very small nut?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is. I think that actually you have the legislation available to you in order to make the social media companies follow suit.
They are out of control. The algorithms, again, we're not customers.
But you're not enforcing it with them.
We're not. The Ofcom has a lot more power. My God, they've got enough powers over us, for goodness sake.
Precisely.
But this is the thing. It's how much they can do that. And we know that the White House interfered. All these big tech companies are run pretty much, mostly on TikTok, they're run by America, by American firms. But we have a right to protect our children from these algorithms. But I, as an adult, want to be protected from these things as well. And I'm not sure I trust either the government or the social media companies, other than the fact that when you set up an account, you put in, this is the stuff I want to see, this is the stuff I absolutely do not want to see. I don't think extreme violence and extreme porn where people are physically hurting each other and things, I don't think that should be available mainstream at all anyway. But who decides what and which, I don't want Mary Whitehouse in charge of what I see.
I was going to say, therein lies your problem.
And this is the problem. So to a certain extent, letting parents decide or letting us decide, but parents are being overwhelmed by 12-year-olds who are better at tech than them, the VPNs, everything else. How do we can't, I don't think we could just go, well, this won't work, let's not do anything. But I don't think this is the thing to solve it.
But where is the enforcement action being taken? Because we saw in Australia, when they implemented their social media ban, that the majority of children were still active on social media accounts.
Well, they already had their accounts, but they weren't checked and closed down.
Exactly, which is what the social media companies are supposed to do.
So you can get around that straight away.
But why aren't the social media companies then being held to account for it?
But
that's
Australia. But our government then could... I mean, you could argue if that was the problem, then you could solve that.
But then you don't need legislation banning children if you can actually just go to the sort of core of the problem, which are the social media companies not doing their job. So, I mean, who is going to take ultimate responsibility for children? It should be the parents. And what have you got?
But if the parents aren't doing their job, then the state does step in.
It does. But then do you have to then tar everybody and then extend it to adults having to prove their ID online to access any kind of service whatsoever?
Which is what it's going to do. I mean, again,
yes, it is. It's what it's going to lead
the reality is that you're not going to have to prove you're 16 because, I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, we have work experience people who turn up and I say, you know, are you at school, university, you know, retired? I mean, genuinely, honestly, there are 14-year-olds who look like they're 25 and there are 25-year-olds who look like they're 15. I mean, you just literally, you do not know. So they're basically, we know what they're going to do. They do the same thing as happens in the supermarket. And at 58, of course, I'm always very touched when they go, do you have any idea? I'm like, really? Really, you think I might be under 25? And they check for 25 and not people 21. But either way, so adults are going to be forced to show ID of some sort. There's a whole talk about this double blind thing. So you put a picture, you know, upload a picture of yourself and then... I don't want kids uploading pictures of themselves. I think that's a bad thing. We should be advising our children not to be doing that.
Precisely, not encouraging them to do so.
I always said to my daughter, any picture, no matter how innocent, sent to a girlfriend, like a friend, you know, it's just, you know, anything. Do you want that on the front page of the school newsletter? Do you want your head teacher seeing that? That's your rule. That's your rule. If you don't send that picture. And preferably you don't take it. It doesn't exist, OK? But my God, it's completely the norm for a lot of teenagers now to just be sending pictures of their body parts. You know, it's like hey, I'd like to date you. Here's my appendage down here and here are my boobs up here. Genuinely, and of course, parents who think that their children aren't doing this. God bless you. God bless you. The parents who think their children aren't trying drink or dabbling with drugs, even the good kids, they are doing this stuff. The odds are your child is on some social media you have not approved of. Your child, everyone thinks my child hasn't. Your child has seen horrific violence and horrifically violent sex on a phone. Maybe not theirs, someone else's. They have seen it. And you've got to get your heads out of the sand and you've got to pay attention. Maybe put your phone down for a little bit so you can pay attention. Spend a bit more time talking to your kids. Sorry, that's the stuff that works. Meals around the table, everyone looking at each other, not watching telly, not on their iPad. This stuff works. You need to be communicating. And even then, your kid may not tell you, but you've got to assume the worst.
You absolutely have. But isn't that just the general rule of parenting? Because it was always my worry when everything went silent.
I was just going to... That was about it. It's gone quiet. Run. What are they doing?
Something
what are they
bad.
busy breaking? Who's died?
But it is something bad was happening at that point. If there was noise, I was really quite happy. It is down to the parents. It is also a bizarre list of apps that the government wishes to...
Very telling.
Get rid of.
I mean, I hadn't heard of half of them, I'm not going to lie.
I've heard of them, but I wouldn't have thought that most teenagers, when you sort of say to them, oh, you know, have a look at this thing on Facebook, they'll just look at you as if you're ancient.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, let me show you a Dead Sea Scroll. I mean, it's virtually that, isn't it?
Sanskrit.
I like to say to my daughter, what's that mean? She just rolls her eyes. Like,
mine does. I WhatsApp him and he ignores it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. But this is it. But there's some of these things. But again, X, which they no longer approve of course, because it's owned by Elon Musk. If it was still owned by, you know, the Right On Brigade who had it as Twitter, they'd be perfectly happy people to be on that. But Blue Sky, which was the one which all the lefties went on, you know, and are now bored out of their minds. Oh, also, the paedophiles have moved there as well. Imagine everyone's surprised. But that's not going to be impacted. The point is, any legislation, a new social media will be invented. You just call something new, and then is it affected by this legislation? Or are we going to have legislation that's going to affect loads of things that haven't even been invented yet? Or or they just go to another format. I mean, as soon as you, as an adult, have caught up with what format your child is messaging their friends in, trust me, they are no longer using that format. That's just how they live their life. But something has to be done. I think back to my childhood and even my teenage years. My childhood spent out on my bike in the park. Okay, getting up to no good sometimes, but outdoors with with people face to face, and being allowed to do that. Pretty disengaged parents, but I think that was probably quite good. But at least we were out and about with our mates, not sitting in a bedroom getting self-harming. But then teenage years, thank God no one had a phone. Barely any photos of all those haircuts and all of that, all of the dodgy things you did at parties. Yep. And that's what you want. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think this is the answer. I don't think anything that Keir Starmer says is likely to be the answer. He is a man, as you pointed out earlier, who said he would tread, when you became Prime Minister 2 years ago, he would tread more lightly on our lives. The state is now feeding our kids in the morning, policing what time they're allowed to be on YouTube until 8:30, but saying that you can't trust them to be on YouTube, you can't trust them to be on X, they can't be sitting there seeing a lot of the social media, which gives us the news, because you're not getting it on a lot of mainstream media. And you really are not. Even the Henry Novak case, we were saying, was barely being touched. Mainstream media barely touched that after seeing that video. They barely touched it. It was only channels like ours that were promoting, we need to discuss this. This is a horrific event. But then at the same time saying that 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote. I mean, it's insane. You're allowed to decide who runs the country, but you're not allowed to decide what website you look at. That's actually insane.
You're allowed to go out and have a job when you're 17 in the evening, but you couldn't watch the election results coming in that day after you'd voted. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this is a rushed piece of legislation, and it always leads to something which doesn't stand up.
It's knee-jerk. He said he was going to wait until he'd seen the impact of the Australian ban. Good, and also they're not bringing it into next spring anyway, but it's 3 weeks after the consultation closed. This is something that he knows is popular with parents. Oh, being populist? I thought you didn't like that, Prime Minister. You thought that was wrong. But the thing is, a lot of parents probably don't realise the impact. And by the way, a lot of parents who want this are part of the problem, not doing their job of parenting. I'll put my kid at the age of 1 in front of my phone. Seriously, parents, your child should never have a look at your phone. Never. You just got... You need to give your kids books and crayons and jigsaws and talk to your kids. I'm sorry. And don't this whole I'm working. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't care. Point when you're with your kid, you're not working. So, I'm sorry. We need to have some proper conversations about what works and what doesn't. And I'm sorry, I'm always going to say that, but I do think we need to make it easier for parents. So they're not getting so you can try and be as good about this stuff as you want, and then your kid is the Luddite who's the only kid in the class not on these groups, doesn't even know when everyone's meeting up on Saturday night. That's unfair too. That's cruel.
Yeah, it is. And kids have a hard enough time as it is fitting in. We all know what peer pressure is like. But do we think a low-quality piece of legislation is actually going to help parents?
And it will be low quality.
It's going to only make it worse. It's going to be more confusing. And what happens when new apps come up?
Exactly. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000 to have your say on this. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Let's also talk about... interestingly, Keir Starmer, we are told, there's no more money for defence under this new Defence Secretary, Dan Jarvis, took the job. It's a long time not to have a Defence Secretary. Well, that was not an immediate appointment. He was probably asking around, will anyone take this job? When John Healey resigned, we were on air on Thursday, and then we had Al Khan's going as well in the evening, and really interesting to talk to him in the last half hour or so. Really, again, a really impressive guy. I disagree with him on... I think two-child benefit gap is one of the tests of whether someone gets it or doesn't get it. But, if you can find money for the two-child benefit cap to give largely non-working parents more money for kids they can't afford but have chosen to have taken out of the pockets of parents who've had fewer children than they would like because they can't afford them, because that's what you're doing. But you're not having to have enough money to buy subs and warships to protect us. I think you've got your priorities wrong. But no new money. We were told that basically this new defence investment plan was going to basically be, in cash terms, just 10 billion quid more over a few years. Nowhere near what is needed. I mean, nowhere near. 28 billion is what's needed to stand still from the 66 billion we're currently spending. And that's over 3 or 4 years. We've had the seizure of that Russian Shadow Fleet tanker. We're told that's just the beginning. It's all very impressive. But realistically, if the Russians had sent, as they did quite a few times, a warship along with that tanker, they wouldn't have chanced it, because we couldn't have taken them on. There you are. That's all you need to know.
And that's your problem, isn't it? And you look at things like that and you think this is where our armed forces are so brilliant. You know, they can get on those ships, they can do all of the exercise stuff, but they don't have the facilities or the equipment to go and do it on a frequent basis. So it's all very well for the Prime Minister to say this is only the beginning. Well, the beginning of what?
Yeah.
You know, you wagging a finger at states saying you're being very naughty.
What's you going to, you know, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough? Yeah, I'm afraid they will come and have a go. That's what the Prime Minister himself warned over a week ago at the Munich Security Conference, that we could face attack by Russia in 2030. And no, that's not them rolling tanks across the channel, you know, in portable bridges, but it is them cutting our cables and things. It's not a question of can we afford to spend money on defence so we can guard our national interest. It's can we afford not to. I wrote a piece to The Sun about this because just mind blown by this. We're spending, you know, 2.3% on GDP. So the money we've got, this country, we're spending 2.3% on defence. It's a fraction of the welfare bill. Well, that tells you we've got a problem. Back in 1938, it was around the 6-7% mark. That was when Neville Chamberlain was still trying to negotiate, still hoping to have peace, but it was still 6 or 7% of GDP. Okay, just smaller GDP then again, but it was 6-7%. Do you know what it was in the early 1940s when we were at war for a few years? It was 50%. Yeah, half of our national income was being spent on the war effort. Going to war is really expensive. So every single penny, every single extra 10, 20 billion you spend on not going to war, and you do that by making sure you have the defences that you can protect your country, your allies and your territories and your economic interest, means that you are able to deter an attack. Every single penny is money well spent because the cost of war is so huge. A cost of one of those cables being cut, or gas pipeline, electricity cables, communication cables for the city. Seriously, that will dwarf any extra spending on defence. It's a no-brainer, and the government won't spend this money. We're talking about a leadership challenge. Al Khan's was very interesting. I mean, he's picking up. I mean, he wasn't saying he's going to challenge. He wouldn't answer would he be a good Prime Minister. He's quite clear he's got a lot of the traits. I mean, he ticks so many boxes. He's, you know, ex-military. He's a serious guy. He's very articulate. He looks manly. Come on, let's be honest. He looks like a leader. Who are we kidding? There are a lot of people who would walk past Keir Starmer in the street who would say, I'll vote for Al Khan. He looks serious. Has he been tried and tested politically yet? Is that a harder battle than what he did as a commando? I doubt it. I don't know. He's credible. Of the other people, Andy Burnham and others, you know, Wes Streeting, do you think, we are going to get a leadership challenge as soon as Friday if we're told that Andy Burnham is likely to win this by-election?
I don't think it'll be as soon as Friday. I think that's optimistic. I think that you have to... There are certain things that the Labour Party have that you have to do first before... It's not just like the Tories who decide that we want to get rid of a leader and we go ahead and do it. Yep. The Labour Party is actually a much more democratic way of dealing with it and more people to ask. But I did write down during your conversation with Al Khan's, it was a party political broadcast.
Oh, wasn't it?
On behalf of Al Khan's. And, yeah, he is very good. And I think that should the starting gun be fired over this, I think he is going to be one of the contenders. So I think people shouldn't underestimate.
He needs 81 MPs. I mean, word is Wes Streeting hasn't got that yet.
Precisely, and Al is one of the new intakes, so he will have friends that others won't have. He will have contacts within different parts of the party that perhaps Wes Streeting doesn't. Yep. It'll be interesting to see. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting summer when it comes to this kind of shenanigan.
I'm going to have to read out the candidates because I haven't done it so far on the show. Here we go. Put on the kettle, just do, go to the loo, whatever it is you do while I do this. The candidates, all of the candidates, the Makerville by-election, which is this Thursday. So you'd be delighted to know we can't talk about it on Thursday at all. That would be illegal. But there will be the results, of course. I imagine we'll find out overnight. Certainly much discussed on Friday. Jake Austin, Liberal Democrats, Count Binfay's party, Andy Burnham, the Labour Party, Dan Clark, the Libertarian Party, John Dyer, Independent, Ed Gemmell, Climate Party, Paul Gould, Independent, Alan Howling, Lord Hope, the official monster raving loony party, Robert Kenyon, Reform UK, Robert Pownell, Protect the Wild, Rebecca Shepherd, Restore Britain, Sarah Wakefield, Green Party, Peter Ward, Rejoin EU, Michael Winstanley, the Conservative Party. There you go, that's that done. Tick. Very strict rules. I've got websites to direct you to. We're going to have the list. It's why we have to do it. We've seen a lot of tax over the weekend. The Mail on Sunday, Daily Mail really gone for it with Restore Britain. This is Rupert Lowe set up, obviously elected as a Reform MP. Big fallout with Nigel Farage. There's a lot of egos and, frankly, slapping body parts on the table by these gentlemen, in my view. There's no doubt at all. The polling appears to show, as much as we can trust polls, who knows, but the polling again and again seems to show in Makerfield is that Andy Burnham is on course to win the seat. But if Restore were not taking Reform's votes, it is likely that Reform could have won that seat. Now, that again, it's a big if. You don't know whether those Restore voters, will they actually turn out and vote? Are they people who wouldn't have voted at all otherwise, etc., etc.? But a lot of the attacks on Restore is Rupert Lowe accepting support and people canvassing on behalf of Restore in Makerfield who have been to, well, to all intents and purposes, when people talk about the far right, Nigel Farage, we're talking about proper far right, people who've done Nazi salutes on camera proudly, people involved in the sort of re-migration, it's called. We're not talking about deporting people who've got no right to be here who are illegal. Why is that controversial? We're talking about people who are saying that everyone who isn't white needs to be removed from this country. Now, I'm sorry. These things are so different, and to put them all in the same boat is ridiculous. That is full-on, blatantly, openly racist. I don't want any part of it at all. We've got Restore's Rupert Lowe basically saying, open arms to someone like Tommy Robinson, who's been openly supporting him. These are very different things. I mean, lumping everybody in. If you call everybody who voted for Brexit the far right, then you lose the words to having their meaning when you're actually talking about the far right. Do you think that Rupert Lowe is a threat? Do you think he is far right?
Do I think he's a threat? No. I mean, I don't in the grand scheme of politics. I think he's going to latch on to certain arguments, and in certain constituencies he will have a following. How big that following is, we don't know, because this is the first by-election in which he has stood a candidate for his party. So we have nothing to base it on. So I think we have to reserve a little bit of judgment until we see the figures come out at the end of the week. We don't know what the support is, because I've been out on the doorstep in many, many elections over the years, and people don't always tell you the entire truth.
And also it depends which local estate you're on, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Really interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000. Kemi Badenoch has been giving a speech on national security. She says the Prime Minister is burying his head in the sand and he must resign if he cannot deliver the defence plan to protect national security. So basically he's failing to keep us safe, which is what his own Defence Secretary said last week. She said she's willing to work with any Labour leader in the national interest. Basically, if either man, she said, whoever's in charge is willing to push welfare cuts through Parliament to pay for defence spending hikes, she will back them. Very interesting. I'm going to take your calls up next. Lots of you getting in touch, in particular on social media. Get in touch on anything you want. You're in control of that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Coming up, delighted to say, after your calls, we're going to be talking to the brilliant, the wonderful veteran, I hope you won't mind me saying that, veteran broadcaster, Andrew Neil, to get his take on anything and everything. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk at the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:28 is the time. We've been talking about this social media ban announced by the Prime Minister. And what is interesting, lots of parents in the room calling for it, many parents who've lost their children due to things they believe they've seen on social media. Interesting, some other parents who very much, the father of Molly Russell, for instance, very much disapproving. NSPCC saying this is not the answer. On the phone right now, he's given us a call on 0344 499 1000, as you can anytime, is Mark in Essex. And Mark, you have a very, very particular and poignant story to tell about social media and your child. Tell us who your son was.
Yeah, hi Julia. My son was Isaac Canavan.
Yeah.
He was one of the group that first started with my wife campaigning for more safety for children online.
Yeah.
I won't go into too much detail of what happened to him, but I've heard a few people speaking today, and
Can I interrupt? Can I just say, for the benefit of the audience who may not know, and without too much detail, you believe that he'd been seeing a challenge, so-called blackout challenge on TikTok.
Correct. Yes.
And he was unable to be resuscitated, and there was a TikTok posting him pointing at his neck and laughing. So your concern is that he had followed other children, and we've seen this at other challenges.
We actually think he was shown it on another device by another child.
Yeah.
But my point really to phone in is to say, look, I don't agree with giving any government of any hue the power to ban things.
Yeah.
And there's a few parents in that group that feel this. And what's really happens, I think, is, and it will lead to not protecting the children, because I don't think this government in particular have never, ever really thought it was about protecting our children.
Yeah.
It's really about ending up controlling us and censoring us. That's what I believe is going to happen. And I think, and I'm going to say this, that is disgusting. They are scum for using the death of our children to pass laws that will end up censoring the general public. I don't agree with that. That is not my principle. What happened to my son was harrowing, and I wouldn't want any other parents to go through it. But this isn't the answer. They should have been doing what we asked for at the beginning, was to sit with these platforms and say, look, the way forward is to make it look beneficial to your business. And say, you can say to the wider public, which obviously includes parents, we are safer than those guys over there. You're best to come to our site and make it a business beneficial.
And we know that they can do this because they can control the algorithms. I mean, they control the algorithms of what adverts we see, of what they push to us. We know they can do it.
Do you know what it is, Julia? They look at it as a bottom line. They can soak up the fines rather than spending the money on making their platforms clean. I could go on now, make up, I'm 13. I know this is going to sound hypocritical because the law is going to stop some of this, but kids were going to find a way around this,
The law won't stop. It hasn't in Australia. Even if they took all those kids off social media and had to get on again, they'll all get on again.
No. So it really, that's what makes me so angry at these people, is that they've sold it on the back of the death of our children to say to the rest of the public, look, we're going to do something about this, when actually the hidden part of it is to censor people online. And what's going to happen is, it's obvious, they want to ban X. On there, there's a lot of trash, but there's also things that happen that the government don't want you to know. And this balance needs to be had. And instead of banning things, there should be discussion with these platforms to say, look, we should work together.
Yeah.
But I really honestly think they've never, ever had the safety of the children.
That is a very damning indictment. You're not the only bereaved father who has spoken out against this. I think that's incredibly brave of you. And I really appreciate that input, and I'm pretty sure every single person right now can see people's faces in the control room, and Claire's face, and just the thought of this happening to our child, and we all say, well, anything that will stop that from happening, we would agree with. But your point is, this isn't going to stop that from happening. These deaths are being used as a way of bringing in more control. Mark, thank you. So sorry to you and your other half, for your whole family, for your awful loss, and so appreciate you speaking out on this. Such an important voice. Thank you for calling us.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Mark. Claire Pissell, I mean, that's very powerful.
And I think that is the voice that we need to hear on this particular discussion. It's no good the Prime Minister standing there saying that it's all wonderful when you hear what Mark and his family have been through with their son Isaac. I mean, my heart is just sort of broken in pieces.
I think all of us, didn't we? All just had a sort of a...
Yeah.
Stomachs just turned over because you're there but for the grace. That's the reality. That's what most parents are going through, which no wonder 9 out of 10 parents support this. Is this going to keep your child safe?
Precisely.
Doesn't appear that it will, but it might make us as adults and all of us less safe in terms of the information that we're going to be able to see who's going to control that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. 0344 499 1000. Going to take a quick break. Up next, journalist and broadcaster Andrew Neil get his take on all of the big stories. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's fast approaching 11:36. Delighted to be joined by Andrew Neil, the journalist and broadcaster, to talk about all the big stories of the day. Good morning to you, Andrew.
And good morning to you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know you were on the line listening to our last caller. I mean, credible call from Mark about his son Isaac, who is a 13-year-old who died, they're pretty sure, as a result of a TikTok challenge that kids are seeing. Parents wouldn't have been aware of it, but unable to be resuscitated. It's not the first time, it's not the last time, and he is among a number of parents who actually say, we don't think this social media ban that the Prime Minister announced this morning is going to be the way to keep our children safe. What did you make of it?
Well, I share his scepticism about a ban, because I think governments are very bad at this. Yep. They're bad at regulating things. People will find ways around it. The evidence from Australia is overwhelming on that. Now, Brazil's introduced a ban, not going that well there either. I think his idea, and he's the one that's lost a child, so he's obviously thought about this more deeply than most other people, that you, at least to begin with, you sit down with the tech companies, outline the problem, and ask them, right, what are you going to do about this? And you do that with a ban in the background. That's always the threat there in the background, and you may even have tougher threats. But these tech companies can do almost anything. They seem to know almost everything about us. Yeah. You can see that from the stuff they throw at us, they put our way, and so on. So it cannot be beyond their competence or technological skill to put this right.
How concerned are you about the impact for not just children but adults? Because by definition, if you have to prove you're not a child, you're having to show who you are and give ID. There's lots of talk about double-blind ID just with a photograph, but again, that's not going to be clear. There are plenty of 16-year-olds who look older. There are plenty of 25-year-olds who look younger. Actually, this is going to be a way of, to all intents and purposes, introducing digital ID by the back door, something which the public have made very clear they don't want.
Yeah, but I think the government's too incompetent to do it this way. I mean, when it comes to digital matters, governments are in the dark ages. Yeah. for every electronic measure, as we used to call them in the pre-digital age, for every electronic measure, there is a counter-electronic measure. And the kids will be the first to find that out.
Oh, yes.
You know, they know what VPNs are. A lot of people over 50 might not, but they do.
Yep.
And they'll find that, and they'll find ways around it. And the one, in a sense, why it would be better to have some fundamental reform of the platforms themselves that stop a lot of this garbage being pushed out.
Well, exactly. As an adult, I don't want to see it either.
Yeah. No, exactly. You know, there's a lot of terrible stuff on that. And I think these platforms need to start taking more responsibility for what appears on their platforms.
Yeah. As indeed we all do. We're controlled by Ofcom, and you know you've been in broadcasting for many years. And indeed, when you're a newspaper editor, you know you have to be accountable for what is in your paper or on your radio show or television show.
And I think we need given that these platforms are the 21st century version of publishing, then I think we need a bit of that kind of coming in as well. And therefore they need to be held more to account. They've had a pretty free ride for quite a long time. The technological breakthrough they've made in many ways has been wonderful. There is a hugely positive side to this. It gives young people basically access to all the knowledge in the world.
But sadly not using it for knowledge, using it to look at cat videos.
But some are. You know,
Can I ask you mentioned...
The ones we don't know about are the ones that end up in a terrible situation. They're the ones we know about.
Exactly. There's so much I want to talk to you about. You mentioned accountability. In terms of the Prime Minister, he made that announcement this morning, and we had that seizing of the Russian tanker from their sort of shadow fleet in trying to breach Ukraine oil embargoes yesterday. And lots of action suddenly from Mr. Action Man, Prime Minister, facing this threat of the Makerfield by-election and a possible arrival of Andy Burnham if he wins in the Parliament. He though lost his Defence Secretary and his Armed Forces Minister last Thursday over his plans for defence spending. And basically, the new Defence Secretary, we're told, Dan Jarvis, is going to get the same amount of money that was rejected as making this country unsafe by the last Defence Secretary. Do you think that it is tenable for this country to go forward with only a £10 billion in real terms increase in our defence spending, given the numerous threats we face around the world?
No, it's not credible at all, which is why John Healey resigned. John Healey is a decent man, a Labour patriot who believed in the defence of the country. And he just didn't think 10 million was enough. And it is nowhere near enough to do that. And the money is available. Plenty of things you could take the money from if defence was a priority. But I think in their bones, neither Keir Starmer nor Rachel Reeves really care enough about it to make it the priority. I think they didn't come into politics to spend more on defence. Yeah. That's not what got them out of bed in the morning. And I think deep down, this is just not the priority for them. And what John Healey was pointing out last week was essentially the basic hypocrisy of the Prime Minister's position. Because he struts the world stage. You'll probably be attempting it again at the G7 in France this week for the next 3 days. About, we're going to form a coalition of the willing. And we're going to help get ships through the Strait of Hormuz.
Willing but not able.
God knows how he's going to do that. I mean, he's only got 2 pedalers in the Serpentine to deploy on the Gulf from the Navy. And he's been prepared, as John Healey was basically saying, you talk the talk, but you're not walking the walk. And I don't think Rachel Reeves cares about defence. She cares more about her fiscal rules. I don't think she got into politics to spend more on defence. But here's the rub. This is a dangerous time. This is in many ways the 1930s all over again. The dictators are on the rise. The autocrats are on the march. The bad people are winning. The good people are losing. It's a time when you have to spend more on defence, whether you like it or not. And I think this government has failed that test. And they're all over the place. We listened yesterday, Julie, to Lisa Nandy was on the broadcast round. And she kind of implied that there would be more money for Dan Jarvis, the new defence minister. Oh, no, it wasn't all settled. And lo and behold, within 24 hours, that's blown out the water. I mean, why you would ask Lisa Nandy a question about defence? I mean...
Well, presumably, before she does the media round on behalf of the government, I imagine everyone else was calling in sick that day. She might have asked Number 10 what's going to be the state of play. But again...
If you're going to ask her about defence, Julie, I'm surprised you're not asking me about quantum physics and brain surgery.
Right, next question. I tell you what I will ask you about, though. While we've been on air, the Home Office has won its appeal at the Court of Appeal against the decision to overturn their ban on Palestine Action being a terror organisation. To clarify that, Palestine Action is lawfully banned as a terror organisation. Of course, we had those convictions and sentencing last week of those who had, well, not only just caused huge amount of damage on a military site, but also had smashed a policewoman's back and broke some of her back with a sledgehammer. Pretty lengthy sentences they got. Do you think that was the right decision by the court?
I'm in the default position of this government. If it doesn't like something, is to ban it. And I'm not that keen on that. I mean, I don't like what Palestine Action stands for, but there's lots of things I don't like what people stand for. But my default position is not to ban them. I would say two things. One, the people who carried out that damage, the book was thrown at them, and it should have been. And they should live. They need to take the consequences of their criminal activities. I have no problem with that at all. They broke the law and they harmed our defense at a dangerous time, you know, so they got what was coming to them. Does that mean that something like Palestine Action should be banned? Well, I'm not so sure. Simply being banned for being pro-Palestine and being anti-Israeli is not my view.
I think it's their actions that's got regarded that they are.
The action is the key. If it's an action, fine. But if they are simply protesting, gumming up London streets at the weekend, which is a bit of a pain, but that's not enough to be
That's
banned.
not quite the same thing. Let's also talk about the big political event on Thursday, the Makerfield by-election. This is a by-election, we're told, is the most consequential by-election in a century, because one of the men standing in it is, of course, the Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, who is being seen as the great white hope to take Labour to another election victory amid the failures of Keir Starmer. There's no doubt at all a lot of the things that are going on in government in the last couple of days are basically a sort of action by the Prime Minister to look like Mr. Action ahead of a possible victory by Andy Burnham, which the polls suggest he will get, and an early challenge as early as Friday or next Monday, a challenge from Andy Burnham. Do you think he'd make a better Prime Minister than Keir Starmer, judging from what we know already?
Well, my initial reaction would say it could hardly be worse, but whether it would be better is another matter, because one of the things we learned quite early on was that Keir Starmer came to power in July of 2024 totally unprepared for power. He didn't really have a proper programme. He didn't have thought through policies. He basically just didn't do his homework in opposition. Well, if that was bad enough for Keir Starmer, Andy Burnham is nowhere prepared for power. He's done nowhere. You've seen that. I mean, he's dizzy from the U-turns he's done in the campaign itself. I mean, every time he says something, he then says the opposite. Look at the WASPy women. Yeah. The support for them, I think, lasted for just under 24 hours. Or we shouldn't be in hock to the bond markets. Yeah. Oh, I'll stick with Rachel Reeves's fiscal rules.
Which he won't state. He doesn't. Not sure he knows them.
No, because I'm not quite sure he knows them. There are 2 fiscal rules plus a supplementary welfare rule. So you could argue there were up to 3 of them, but he didn't tell the BBC what they were. He is totally unprepared for power. Look, he's a likeable lad. He speaks human, unlike the current Prime Minister. He's from the north. It'd be good to get away from yet another liberal London lawyer and so on. But is he? I mean, it's quite amazing the way in which we allow people who are not in any way prepared for the most important position in the country to get that position. And I suspect he'll be immediately in deep trouble, because there'll be huge expectations on the left of the Labour Party for him to deliver all manner of spending and wealth taxes and all the rest of it. Tax Elon Musk. If only we could get a hold of him, all our problems would be solved. If only he was British. Oh, he's not British, right, fine. Well, I guess we can't tax him. All of that, he'll be in real trouble. It won't work well. The bond markets will have their say. And lo and behold, if you and I are to talk, let's say, before spring has sprung next year, if Mr. Burnham is taken over in September of this year, say just before the Labour conference in Liverpool, I wouldn't be surprised if his approval ratings are as low as Keir Starmer's on.
Neither would I. Just finally, and I'm sure it's going to be very, very, very brief. We learnt last night the death of the former Labour deputy leader, Roy Hasley, at 93. I have a family link here because my dad was his election agent in the 1970s. You wouldn't guess that now, would you? I remember meeting him as a child. Sad death. He's been suffering from Parkinson's and has been very... But in terms of the deputy leaders we have now, we've had, Angela Rayner, we've got David Lammy right now. What do you... Lucy Powell, officially the deputy as opposed to deputy prime minister. They don't make them like that anymore, do they?
No, Roy had a hint of land. He was a great writer. He had another career other than politics. He had a wide variety of interests. He was a bit of a character. He could be pompous. He wasn't quite as accomplished as he thought he was himself. He was a bit of a nearly man as a politician. He never quite made it into the Premier Division. He was only a cabinet minister briefly, but he was good company. He thought about things. He was serious about politics. He could have a laugh because he came from Yorkshire, so he had a bit of a character about him, and he doesn't fit into the kind of identikit career politicians that now dominate our
Absolutely. Now, Andrew, before I let you go, I must point out, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in, you've got a new podcast, The Andrew Neil Report. It's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. The show features analysis of major domestic and global stories alongside guests discussing issues shaping the week. When's the first one out?
First one was out last Thursday. We looked to see whether are we heading for another great crash or not because of AI and
cheerful
all this
stuff.
Excess lending. I'm about to do one on the so-called peace deal that Mr. Trump is boasting about to see if there's anything to it. And then later this week, we're going to turn on Thursday when we put one out every Thursday, the big one, the flagship one. We're going to really dig in to what Europe and Britain have to do to defend ourselves if we can no longer count on America.
Great stuff. It's the Andrew Neil Report on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much, Andrew. Always great to have you on. Hope you come back again soon. 11:50 is the time. Take a quick break and then we'll be back in just a couple of moments. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Very quick word from Claire Pearsall. Interesting always to talk to Andrew Neil, and do check out his podcast. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Just like, is Burnham going to really boost the fortunes if he does get in more than Keir Starmer? There'll be a bump, and then it'll go. back down again.
Oh, that's it. And I always love Andrew Neil's analysis on these things, and I think he's right with his phrase, they've not done their homework.
Yeah,
absolutely covers it, doesn't it?
Really like politicians to do more research than I do for my show when they're making policy.
Well,
is that old-fashioned? But there we are.
It's
anyway.
a no-bar,
Let's turn our attention to, well, we know net zero doesn't involve any research, because if you paid any attention, you could basically add up. You would know that it was all insane. But no doubt at all, we're told the Prime Minister is keen on basically watering down the current Prime Minister, watering down the net zero targets that Ed Miliband is absolutely set on. He wanting to ban our heated towel rails, underfloor heating, that's the latest. And now we've got EV charging companies that are threatening to axe £2 billion of investment if Keir Starmer softens Labour's net zero stance. Well, let's talk about this with Rupert Darwell, author of Green Tyranny and voice of sanity on all this issue. Very good morning to you, Rupert.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. So, listen, I mean, I thought, oh, there's some good news. The Prime Minister's seeing sense. Net zero, unaffordable, absolutely mad anyway. But trying to water things down. I mean, you'd think he's Prime Minister. He can scrap it if he wants. But then he's going to face threats. So who's making these threats and how can they get away with it?
Well, it's very interesting what the EV charging companies are really telling us, that they need net zero to justify their investment, which shows they fundamentally don't have confidence in their own product.
Hold on a minute. Everything's cheaper and better with EVs, isn't it?
Well, one of the things the Office for Budget Responsibility actually shows up in one bit of sanity is that net zero opens up a large fiscal deficit as petrol duties go down to zero, petrol taxes and duties and so forth. So the idea that EVs are going to be cheaper, and they're going to put Rachel Reeves has already started the process of taxing EVs.
We saw that, like the London congestion charge, and it's like, oh, have an EV, you won't be affected by the congestion charge. And it's like, I remember sitting there with my husband going, yeah, give it 3 years. Give it 3 years, they'll be charging them. Oh yeah, what a surprise.
Well, as national debt goes up to 100%, they've got to do that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. These companies are basically banging on the Prime Minister's doors and saying, save our business plan, because it really depends on coercion and mandates and restrictions.
Because if they were better, people would choose to buy them. And even with these absurd targets, I mean, really... I mean, when I've explained these to people, sometimes people just go, you're just making this stuff up. The idea that our car companies are literally by law told what percentage of cars they can sell that are petrol and diesel, what percentage they have to sell that are EVs, and they're basically having to subsidise the sale of electric vehicles because no one wants to buy the damn things.
Yeah, that is a particular insanity. It's politicians thinking that manufacturers control the market and that consumers have no say, that they can force consumers to buy stuff they don't want to buy.
Still going to be buying a diesel car. I'm serious. I'm just still going to be... People are going to be hoarding them if they can, when the ban comes through. Look, you and I have discussed this many times. We've always said none of these policies actually survive contact with reality. Whenever they start actually trying to bring things through, it becomes untenable. Some of the stuff that's the impact on landlords. And if you're renting out your property, you have to have all these different, zero targets things. And people have just gone, do you know what? I'm not going to spend 10 or 20 grand upgrading my property. The rent I'm going to get for it's not worth it. I'll just sell up. People are acting rationally to avoid this stuff because they will. But I'm always fascinated by how the government thinks they're going to police things like, heated towel rails, underfloor heating. I mean, I wouldn't have underfloor heating because it costs a bleeding fortune. But, in the middle of summer, you never got your radiators on. Your towels can literally just not dry from one day to the next unless you've got a lovely sunny bathroom. Like, why are they interfering with stuff that we do in our own homes? I mean, they're going to decide what cereal I eat in the morning as well?
But Julia, it's not just about consumer preferences. To what Andrew Neil said in your previous segment about looking at can Europeans defend themselves? The answer is they can't as long as Europe and the UK remain committed to net zero. Net zero is the biggest national security threat out there.
Exactly. And this is the thing we're talking about. We talked earlier with the former Armed Forces Minister who resigned on Thursday, Al Cards, about, he was saying about, welfare or warfare, but it's a whole government thing. But when people talk about, well, where is the money? I mean, welfare, easy to find it in that. Net zero, even easier. What sort of money could be saved from government coffers right now? I mean, I'd rather a lot of that money was handed back in tax to people, but in terms of the subsidies and all the extra costs, and of course, the extra impact on our energy bills as well, as people forget that everything we buy, touch, use is affected by high energy costs. Again, affected by those net zero policies. What sort of round number are we looking at in terms of drop net zero? What do we save?
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of net zero is being done off budget. That's the sort of dirty secret of net zero.
What do you mean?
So, by that is effectively there are taxes on energy, but then they don't come through. They don't come to the exchequer. The tax revenue doesn't come to the exchequer. It goes to the wind and solar companies directly. So there's a lot of it. And also the mandates that we're talking, banning underfloor heating and so forth, those are all hidden taxes, if you like, and they are taxes on growth. And the biggest impediment to generating the resources for defence is that the economy is hardly growing at all. And a lot of that is to do with net zero. So the biggest tax on the economy is net zero. It's a tax on growth. And we're not going to generate, the economy is not going to generate the resources for defence spending as long as we're on net zero.
Indeed, they're putting everything into AI. We ain't going to be a leader in AI when no one who runs an AI business can actually get the energy, afford the energy, or even get the energy at all in this country because we don't have the electricity supply. Rupert Darwell, thank you for pulling it all together for us. Very much appreciate that. Author of Green Tyranny, of course, fantastic book. He puts it all out very, very, very clearly. So much more to talk about coming up. We're going to be talking about the social media ban. We're going to be talking to Silky Carlo. She's director of Big Brother Watch. Why she believes that this social media ban under 16s is actually not about protecting children, but is about basically stopping us seeing what we want to see. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon and welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show as well. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. You're with Talk. We are on DAB Plus Radio and you're on your smart speaker. Also, you can watch on YouTube or your connected device. And however you're listening or watching, it's great to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us. If you miss anything, you can go to my YouTube page, The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking with Big Brother Watch's Silky Carla about that ban announced by the Prime Minister in his very slow, ponderous voice that always means he really does care about something. He might be gone in a few weeks, guys. Look on the bright side. But under 16s to be banned from most major social media platforms, but not all, interestingly. Is this just a political populism, a knee-jerk reaction ahead of the Makerfield by-election to try and keep his jobs? And how much of a risk are facial scans being used to enforce age limits? A risk for your and my liberty as an adult. We'll talk about that. Plus, word is that Andy Burnham is preparing to launch an immediate leadership challenge against Keir Starmer if he does win the Makerfield by-election this Thursday. What is going on in the world of the military, not just a new Defence Secretary? Is he going to have any extra money? We're told not, after the former Defence Secretary resigned last Thursday, saying there wasn't enough cash to keep this country safe. This as the US and Iran say they have agreed a framework deal to end the war in the Middle East, due to be signed in Switzerland on Friday, but a heck of a lot can happen before then. Meanwhile, white job seekers are being shut out of taxpayer-funded employment schemes as a range of programmes to get people into jobs are being offered by local authorities only to ethnic minorities. Oh, but when Nigel Farage of Reform UK says that we have two-tier Britain, no, apparently he's just stirring things up. But if those things exist, surely we have to pay attention. Claire Pearce, I'm delighted to say, is still joining me in the studio, former Conservative Government Advisor. Thank you so much for this. There's a heck of a lot going on.
There is.
While we've been on air, we had that Prime Minister's press conference at 8:15 this morning. I mean, you know, he just wanted the Today programme and be able to talk without being questioned by anybody. Yeah. By the way, one thing we got used to, political journalists asking the Prime Minister questions. These are the ones who didn't ask the Prime Minister or the former Prime Minister any of the right questions when it comes to lockdown, because they quite agree with lockdown. They pretty much, to a man and a woman, agree on the social media ban. So do not trust them to ask the right questions on that. Claire and I are both saying we're kind of like, you know, we want something done, but we don't think this is the right thing to do. Meanwhile, we've also had a press conference from Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, basically saying she will work with any Labour leader to do any sort of deal to cut welfare, to spend more money on defence. We've also had a press conference from Reform UK's Robert Jenrick. And he's pledged to raise more than 11 billion quid by increasing taxes on businesses that employ foreign workers. He'd impose a two-tier system of business taxes, creating a new foreign workers levy that would cut employer national insurance contributions for British workers but charge the current rate for foreigners, effectively offering firms a tax cut to employ domestic staff. Bear in mind, at the moment, they've actually genuinely, this government has brought in a policy where they will actually pay a bonus, you know, to companies. Yes. They get a bonus, you know, to give extra money to employ foreign workers, which is insane at a time. Meanwhile, Court of Appeal, are you keeping up at the back? Nice easy day. The Court of Appeal has ruled that Home Office ban on Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation, very controversially, got challenged. The Home Office appealed that. And this new ruling, three judges ruled in February that Yvette Cooper's decision when she was Home Secretary to prescribe Palestine Action was unlawful. This is a legal challenge, and the court has ruled that actually the ban is lawful. But just before we go to our next guest on the social media ban, I want to get your reaction to that, Claire Pearce. Because we spoke to Andrew Neil briefly about it, and he's not sure that the banning of everything is always the answer. Do you think that the Home Office is right to ban Palestine Action?
I do, and we've had this discussion over the weekend because my husband thinks that we shouldn't have banned them, and I believe that we absolutely should. Yeah. And I think that the real fundamental problem that you have is that any group can have an opinion when that opinion then goes into some really quite nasty action, which is what these individuals were up in court
action, which they're called for. And people like Zach Polansky, the Green Party leader, basically calling these people somehow sort of, you know, martyrs.
Yeah, some kind of freedom fighter.
Smash a sledgehammer onto the back of a female police officer doing her job.
And
well, you're at no threat at all. I'm sorry, you need to be behind bars, and for a long time.
And also the business that they were targeting, which was an Israeli-based business. So is that going to be the anti-Semitic views coming through of individuals?
Of course it is.
I just think that you cannot allow that. It's not as if somebody is just protesting a cause. These are actions which are dangerous.
You're allowed to protest a cause, but again, you can support the people of the Palestinian people, and there isn't a place called Palestine. You can support that cause without at any point breaking the law. It's absolutely perfectly possible. Right, love to hear your thoughts on all that. Do get in touch. A lot of you I want to get in touch on social media, because the Prime Minister has brought in, well, announced that they'll bring it in basically by next spring. Of course, that assumes that he is Prime Minister, or that any next candidate would want to do this as well. But it's a ban for under-16s using social media. Facial scans being used to enforce the age limits could come in as early as next spring. Do you support or oppose the ban? Tell us why you do. Tell us why you don't. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at talkTV on X. But I mean, while you still can. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. Let's talk about all this now with the director of Big Brother Watch. That's Silkie Carlo. A very good afternoon to you, Silkie.
Good afternoon,
Julia. As soon as we knew the Prime Minister was going to be making this announcement today, the first thing I messaged my producer was, please get Silkie Carlo on, because you have been someone who has stood incredibly firm against all of the attempts by social media companies and particularly by government to try and limit what we can say, limit what we can see, limit what we can do on social media and genuinely in the digital world. Can you explain first how the Prime Minister, from what we know so far, I don't know whether he knows any of the detail, what the Prime Minister is actually planning to do and how he's planning to do it? And then we'll go into why you oppose it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on. This is really, really important. What we know so far, behind the slogan of a social media ban for children, is that the largest social media sites like Meta, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat will be subject to a ban for children, which effectively means that they will become ID checkpoints, and that's how this will be enforced. So any site that is selected by the government for a ban will have to enforce ID checkpoints, which count, of course, for everyone. That's how you discover who the children are.
It won't just be your 14-year-olds being checked or your 16-year-olds. It will have to be for everyone.
It's for all of us. And I think that the government hasn't been honest with the public about that. There's a lot of talk about the morality of children being online and about the harms, about which I think there's very, very wide agreement, actually. But the state is stepping into the parenting role and talking about things, not only a ban, but also potentially limiting features and curfews and all sorts of things. But what lies beneath this whole area of a ban and social media restrictions, other than the censorship involved, of course, is the fact that it's mediated by ID checks. So we will all need to prove our age and our identity in most cases in order to do something as ordinary as go onto social media sites.
And would we have to do it every time, or just the first time we logged in?
Well, that's a very good question. In all likelihood, it will be the first time you log in. But of course, then what will happen is that young people will access older people's accounts. Yeah. And in some cases, parents will help them to do that.
I mean, we already see that with things like Snapchat and stuff, which kids and Instagram not allowed on until you're 13. 8-year-olds on it.
Exactly. So, of course, there are ways around this. And what's frustrating about this whole policy area, and the Prime Minister kind of admitted it himself earlier, is that we already know it won't work. It's not going to keep young people off social media. In Australia, the vast majority of children are still on social media, despite the introduction of the ban. What this will do is completely reshape our freedoms in the digital world, because now we will need to show our papers, to have an identity check, to do something as normal as to go into basically the digital town square, our large social media.
And this is sort of the equivalent of having to show your ID. And again, it's not just showing your age, it's showing who you are to buy a newspaper or a book. I mean, you know, to get information. This is the thing. I mean, the Prime Minister had said when this ban came in Australia, there's a lot of pressure. We know, he's pointed out that, he says, kids are unhappy. 9 out of 10 parents who got in touch with this 3-month consultation period said they wanted this ban. But again, any consultation is always going to be skewed. If you say we're going to do this, all the campaigns for it, that's how it gets skewed. He said they would look at the results of the Australian ban. Well, it's only been going for 6 months. The results are pretty clear. It's not working very well. And then they would look at the consultation. It's only 3 weeks. I mean, we've had consultations on things that have, no one's taken any action for 2 years. Suddenly, miraculously, we're getting action. A lot of people think this is more about him trying to look like a man of action, doing something popular, rather than doing something that works. So the motives are questionable as well. But the key thing here is you say, there are a lot of people online, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as you know, and I spend a lot of time poo-pooing this because I don't think that our governments and these bodies are remotely competent or intelligent enough to do conspiracies. However, there are definitely people who want us to have digital ID. They've been trying to sell it to us. It's going to be more efficient. It's going to be right. It's going to be easier. It makes everything more efficient. And 21st century now, these digital companies know everything about you anyway. What difference does it make? When someone says that to you, people having to ID. If you've got nothing to fear, what is your problem with people having to show ID to get on this if it keeps the children safe, Silky? That's the argument.
Yeah, well, first of all, it won't keep children safe, and Australia has shown that the vast majority of children are still on social media sites. Only now they'll be hiding it from their parents because they're not supposed to be on there, and the social media sites have no obligation to protect them whatsoever because they're now adult-only sites. And as for the question of digital ID and motives around that, actually the government's been has at least admitted this behind closed doors, because I've had meetings in the Cabinet Office where this kind of use case, like for 16-year-olds to show their age, was given as a use for the digital ID that the government has been trying to get in. Yeah. Because of course a 16-year-old doesn't have any ID. They don't drive. They might not have a passport. Yeah. But also we should be really telling kids not to send images of their passport over the internet, and also not send images of themselves.
I would have thought number one rule, first thing, for God's sake, don't send any images. No, you just do that anytime you want.
You would think so. But in terms of this question about, the nothing to hide, nothing to fear kind of question, I just want to kind of make really clear to people what we're talking about is being one of the first democracies in the world to require IDs in order to access the internet openly. In fact, even there are many authoritarian countries that don't do this. We have to understand this social media ban, basically ID checkpoints for the internet, in the same case as last week's announcement, which is that now to have a device, a phone, you will need to have that associated with your ID. We have seen the growth of surveillance in this country in the post 9/11 years, and particularly since the Snowden revelations. We discovered that governments do spy on their own populations. Yeah. You and I spoke a lot during the pandemic about ways weaponized, about people in times of crisis. And we are sleepwalking towards a total surveillance state. We already have enormous electronic surveillance, but now your phone will be linked to your ID in a kind of legal way, and even your online activities like going on a social media site. At the moment, we have a huge amount of freedom given to us by the fact that we can speak openly to each other on the internet. Yeah. Some people do that with accounts not in their real name, whistleblowers, comedians. It's a way that speech flourishes, and people could, don't have to be associated with the name that they use at work and everything else. But in this vision of the internet, you're kind of on license from the state.
And we know that because we have seen what happened in lockdown. We saw what happened, in Canada. We've seen we know what happens in China in terms of the social credit system. Again, one of those things when I talk to people about it, they think I've made it up. It's just some dystopian future. No, it's happening right here and right now. A lot of people would say, look, You get all these horrible bots on social media. You get, you know, racist attacks on people, horrible, vile abuse. A lot of it is bot farms. A lot of it is, you know, Russian, Chinese interference in our politics, trying to distort and change debate. You've got people who are pushing, you know, self-harm, suicide, anorexia, people traffickers, drug dealers. A lot of people using these, using throwaway phones. A lot of people would say, well, it's not a bad thing if you know, we've actually got an idea of who is actually on these sites and they have to identify themselves. What would you say to that? The people will say, look, I don't want the intrusion in my own life, but again, if it keeps us safe, if it cuts crime, then it's a good thing overall. What do you say?
Well, the ID requirements are only going to be for British people. They're not going to be for the rest of the world, for the Russian and Chinese bots and everything else.
Yeah.
And also for people that are working outside the bounds of the law, laws like these don't affect them because they find ways around them. So, you know, this is a really, really profound and serious change that reduces internet freedom in a way unlike anything else that we've seen since the birth of the internet, actually.
But there is an argument, like, why does the internet have to be a Wild West? I mean, lots of talk about how much control, you know, Ofcom, which has control over what we in TV and radio can do, and you've got, you know, IPSO, what they can affect, what newspapers can do. You know, we have libel laws, or we can lose our licence, you know, if we disobey the rules, if, you know, there's a massive breach or something. You know, there are strict rules. There is a total Wild West that the social media companies, they say, we're not publishers, we're just a platform, people put stuff on. News agents could be prosecuted for having a newspaper. They would not, there were times when news agents refused, when we used to do that, news agents, remember those? And newspapers, they would say we're not stocking it because we could be legally liable for it. Social media companies say nothing to do with us, Gov. Do we need to have more liability for the social media companies so that we can control them rather than controlling the people who are their customer/product?
The social media companies definitely need to take responsibility for the way that they're designed. And, you know, when you hear things about like children stumbling across really violent or explicit content.
Well, not stumbling across it, being sent to them through the algorithm.
Or indeed, and in fact, not just children, but any of us, that kind of stuff shouldn't be happening. Yeah. Unfortunately, the conversation around a ban completely distracts from the responsibility side of things, because now the companies will say, we're not putting any budget on child safety because we don't have children. We're adult-only companies now. So it's strange for me because, as you know, Julia, I'm somebody that has worked on big tech accountability for my whole career. I think that they do need to be held to account. They have an enormous amount of power and they have an enormous amount of our data. But the idea that a ban on individuals, on the British public, from accessing the open internet without giving IDs is a tried and tested failed approach, as we've seen in the rest of the world, and something that really has a serious impact on all of our freedom. And I'm glad you're covering it, because what's very frustrating as well, and I know a lot of people are feeling this, is that for such a serious change to happen, very few people are actually talking about how this will work in a year's time. What will we be saying about this? What does it actually mean?
And this is it. And we have very little sultry policy, and I think we have very little proper interrogation. I've seen an awful lot of the mainstream media. They're just fully signed up. I mean, BBC and Sky News, an awful lot of the newspapers, they are desperate for this ban. I think a lot of their children, frankly, are little brats who they don't know how to parent properly. I've got to be honest with you, liberal parenting, not a good thing for children, let me tell you. I know you're a new mum. I'm wondering, though, if, like, in 10 years' time, you'll be going, God, I wish there was a ban, because a lot of people, and I would say a lot of the time, you know, this is a parenting issue, first and foremost. I don't want, the state parenting my child, but then we do have rules about whether your child is legally allowed to, you know, have sex before 16, drink alcohol, buy cigarettes, vape, vote. You know, we do have rules, and we do accept that children have greater limitations, and quite rightly, on their freedoms. But your argument is that these won't just be limitations on the freedoms of children, these will be limitations on everybody. What do you think that, I mean, a lot of people say, well, you know what, the government knows all about me anyway. I use my credit card, I've got my phone. Facebook or Snapchat or wherever they're X, whatever they're on, they know what I search for. I mean, there's a company out there that will know, every porn site that someone has gone to. What difference does it make, the government having this information and me having to log on? What is your fear about what happens down the line with this power, this information that they have?
Well, we will now be creating massive pots of the most sensitive types of data, identity data, in multiple places with foreign companies across the internet. That creates a cybersecurity risk from a national security point of view. It creates a honeypot for hackers. Let me give you an example. There was a women's dating website that took IDs and facial verification scans, which it promised people would be deleted immediately. Tens of thousands of them ended up on 4chan, which is a site where women are quite often attacked and harassed.
Yeah.
So there are real risks to our privacy in that tangible sense, but I'm also concerned about the impact on our freedom and liberty. Will we speak as freely? Will accounts be able to pop up that are whistleblowers from in difficult situations, talk about their work or anything else without having to give their real name and their real identity? People exploring their sexuality, all kinds of things that people do without giving their real name. They now will not do in Starmer's Britain. It's like the kind of great British firewall around the internet, and it's unprecedented, and it is really scary.
Is there a concern also that this will be used in a way that has been used by totalitarian states, but also used in democracies like Canada? Let's be honest, where you're actually using your ID, the information they have to prevent you from doing things, closing bank accounts. We saw that the Free Speech Union and others, that the implications can be much wider in terms of being able to access anything at all. Because certainly the trans debate, I think, started this, and then with lockdown debates over lockdowns and face masks and things. We had our YouTube site taken down. You were threatened by if you said trans women are not women, they are men. You lost your X account for good when it was a Twitter account. For good. Nothing, that doesn't come back. That sort of censorship, our ability, not just who can speak, but our ability to say even things that are provably true being controlled. And we know it wasn't just the social media companies doing this. A lot of it was pressure from governments.
Exactly. And we also saw that around the government trying to basically monitor and control what people said online during the pandemic under the banner of countering so-called misinformation, which meant that they actually ended up targeting world-leading scientists saying things that were proven to be true. So this is a really slippery slope. And I think what you're describing is the kind of ratcheting effect as well that we see. And people should brace themselves for this. At the moment we have IDs. The next moral panic will be, but children are still getting online. Then they're going to come for things like VPNs. They've already gone for IDs on devices. So to simply own a phone now in this country, you will soon have a child-locked phone unless you associate it with your ID. And then it will become, what about people's behaviours online? Now that we know who they are, we can go after people. We will just see a ratcheting and a ratcheting unless we have a government that is brave enough to say that we believe in free speech and free expression. We believe in parents to take responsibility. We're going to hold the tech companies to account in the right kind of a way and take a more kind of graduated approach. Unless we do that, and we end up with this kind of top-down Starmer authoritarian approach, which is totally knee-jerk, totally politically motivated, and that leaves us all far less free.
Really good to talk to you, Silky. Just fantastic to have you explain what the risks are, which I think an awful lot of people are not talking through. Certainly a lot of the media who are basically banging the drum for this are not thinking through. Just sort out my parenting issues at home is what they're thinking. We could be into a much bigger issue in terms of the future of our democracy. Silky Carlo, Director of Big Brother Watch, thank you, as always. Claire Pearsall, listening to that. I do think, Silky, they think this stuff through because they are aware of what has happened before and what is happening in other countries. issues. And they were part of a big campaign to get, digital ID, 3 million people signed that online petition. That is a lot of people to sign something that wasn't like front page news every day.
No,
it was
exactly.
not a massive issue. People are waking up to this, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and I think it's the overstepping of governments as a whole that people don't like. And I think one of the unintended consequences of this will be people like those fleeing domestic violence situations who need the anonymity on the internet to be able to find somewhere else to live, to escape. They're not going to be able to do that.
I still don't see why we can't get abusive people off social media. I mean, these ban the accounts. That doesn't seem. None of this seems to be beyond the wit of man, but it always seems to involve controlling, other people, which is I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, again, really interesting to have heard from Mark, whose son Isaac, sadly, just horrifically, we believe has seen a TikTok video involving blackouts and lost his life. I mean, don't. It's one of those things that we don't even want to think about it. But he's opposed to this because he thinks it's a slippery slope to controlling us, and that's very interesting from a parent who you would have complete understanding of them saying, no, you've got to, ban all this stuff. 12:26 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll be online up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:29 is the time. Let's take your calls. 0344 499 1000. All on social media this morning, it has to be said. Vicky's on the line in Norwich. Hello, Vicky.
Hi, are you all right?
Hello, I am. What do you want to say? What do you think of this ban?
I'm furious, to be honest. I wish they'd just butt out. I'm more than capable of sorting out my children and watching what they're looking at. And my daughter actually said this morning, he's going to be giving us the vote in the next general election. He's now messed that up.
Sure, I'm loving your kid. But here's the thing, a lot of parents aren't capable of doing it. It depends what level, some parents apparently seem to be unable. They don't understand how plugs work or batteries work. They don't understand the concept of no. A lot of parents are saying, this would be so much easier for me to take my device away from my child or get them off this or that if the law was clear and their other friends weren't doing it.
Yeah, but that's the parents' job. If they've been on there too long, they're off it. Yes, they'll moan. They're both 14. I've got twins.
Yeah. Oh, God. Can we all just have a moment for Vicky having 14-year-old twins? Have a lie down after
They're
this,
not
love.
stupid children because I haven't brought up stupid children. And it's so frustrating.
They know the consequences. Here's the thing, Vicky. You only have to look around you in public transport. You know that a lot of parents, I'm sorry, they're not doing their job. They don't know how to say no. They think they should be their child's friend. I mean, rather than their parent. They need help. I mean, how do we make sure we know that social media, especially scrolling for hours and hours on end, the stuff some of them are seeing from the algorithms, the girls doing all the weird sort of trout pout stuff, the boys sitting on games the whole time. We know it's not good for them. So how do we make sure they get off it? And it's
hard.
But if millions of parents aren't going to do it, what do? We just go, well, we don't care about those kids?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's not easy. And, and like you said earlier, you can say your children aren't doing this, that and the other. They do. My daughter had some vodka the other day when she went out. She told me.
God bless her.
She just had a little bit. And then I had to explain to her, it's hard. But the parents never ask.
They don't. Parents. Well, that's because they're all on social media. You get most of the information from other parents. I was working in a nightclub at 14.
Yeah, I used to go clubbing at 14. Yeah. I know. I was a nightmare child. And I thank God mine are really good.
You think? Well, but I mean, this is the thing. A lot of parents have got they've got their heads in the sand. They've got no idea what their kids are up to, mainly because they've got their own heads in their own phones.
Oh, don't. That crazy. My husband's a nightmare for it. And I shout at him as well as the kids because all three of them sit on the sofa on their phones. And I'm like, what are you doing?
I'm loving it. We need more Vickies in the world, everyone. We need more Vickies. Thank you very much. Great call. I think you're speaking for a lot of parents there. Nigel's on the line in Portsmouth. Nigel, what do you want to say, my love? Hello, Nigel. Can you hear us? Hello.
Hello, I can hear you loud and clear.
We got you now. What do you want to say?
Actually, I've phoned in to talk about kind of the social media and whatnot. But earlier you spoke about our white working class children, and does the education system kind of go against them, if you like, discriminate against them?
Well, no, there was just a particular announcement. We're going to be talking about it in about 20 minutes' time, actually, about a project that's just only available to ethnic minority kids. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm a white working class fella, but 33 years ago, I married a black African immigrant. Mm-hmm. So our children are mixed race. Mm-hmm. Massive advantage if you go to university and you're mixed race. Massive advantage. Our two girls, we totted it up on just over Christmas, got around about £7,000 worth of grants that were only available to ethnic children. Yeah, there were these bursaries and grants to are able to work in, because I didn't go to university. That's a big advantage. Because they're not white, it's an even bigger advantage. And also, even our youngest daughter was interested in doing law. She got work experience in a magic, these kind of, I think, magic circle. And they only offer it to non-white children. So there are massive advantages.
I mean, it's not disadvantages. I mean, you could be, you could be the child of a Nigerian prince or, an Indian billionaire. You're not disadvantaged. They should be. I don't mind them doing these schemes for disadvantaged kids. That's great. Kids who don't have a parent, sharp elbows like me. I'm all in favour of it. But that said, by the way, you know what? We offer work experience. Anyone gets in touch. We offer work experiences. You just got to have the wherewithal to ask. We're not.
Of course.
That's so depressing. Oh, Nigel.
That's how it is. But anyway, I found in about screen time. Now our children are older. My wife and I foster. One of the biggest things we have to do is wean children off screens, because. And social services basically say, just give them a tablet, stick them in the corner, that'll keep them quiet. Honestly, that's the whole thing. But we kind of, the first children we fostered, a 7-year-old boy, we're still in touch with him. That was 5 years ago. Yeah. He's lovely now. Do you know he couldn't read when he came to us? He had no screen for 8 months. No TV, no tablet, no phone, no laptop, nothing. Until we managed to reunite them with the parents. Yeah. I remember the first time he started saying these things, and I was thinking, that's from TikTok. Where did you get this from? Yeah. TikTok. When did you go to TikTok? Oh, well, when we went to visit my mum, she just gave me a phone. And also, then you must see this. You're in a restaurant, family come in, on their phone all the time.
Breaks my soul. They literally just get out their phones and no one speaks for half an hour.
Children walking around the supermarket on the phone watching Peppa Pig or something.
In their buggy. You know, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, they're in a buggy. I mean, for the love of God, you know, play a game about spotting different coloured cars. There are a million things you can do.
They're not helping them. They're not helping their children. Obviously, that's not just social media. It's screen time. But what parents don't realise is it's those TikTok, it's Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts. They're made to be. Their attention span is just 3 seconds. Swipe up, swipe up, swipe up, swipe up.
Oh, it's so bad.
Not help. But whether the government should ban it or not, Julia, honestly, normally I'm black and white on everything. I don't know. If parents can't be responsible, at some point, that's when the government has to intervene. And I think I hate the idea that the government are banning stuff, but I think in this case, it pains me to say it, I think they might be right.
I hate to tell you, though, like that 7-year-old kid who, you know, you were trying to get, you know, teach to learn to read and actually having some time face-to-face with adults who cared about him. When he goes back to his mum, he's just going to be put on his mum's phone. She's going to get, you know, and it's not going to get around that. It's going to avoid that ban. Nigel, such a thoughtful call. I mean, your calls today, guys, I mean, they're always amazing, but just particularly amazing today. Claire Pearson, just a quick reaction to that.
I think it's quite interesting around supermarkets to have children on phones when they should be sent off down the aisle to go and find a tin of beans or whatever it is, or the vegetables. I mean, if I take the husband and my small child to the supermarket, they race each other on the supermarket trolley.
I consider supermarket shopping to be a solo activity. I shop like a ninja.
I really wish that I could, and those two want to come with me, and they're a nightmare.
I don't think people should bring their screaming toddlers doing, but I also don't think they should then put them on a phone. I think, again, you should just... There's like the amount of parents you see, and they genuinely like, well, if I don't put them on the phone, then they're just going to scream. And just like, there are so many other things that you could do that other people did before 10 years ago when this was the thing. Oh, again, I'm really... We're hearing so many... This is why we love doing this show, because we're hearing so many different thoughts and, you know, and different arguments. Silky Carlo, and, you know, what some of the other parents are saying. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, keep the calls coming. 12:37 is the time. Up next, going to talk to Jake Wallace-Simons about how much can we trust that there is actually a peace deal between US and Iran. And should pro-Palestine protesters, should they be banned? Should they be prescribed? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
On a quiet news day, we got some more breaking news. You remember the case where we had the Prime Minister's house before he moved into 10 Downing Street, another property owned, and his car being attacked, firebombed, effectively. Well, 2 men have just been found guilty of plotting to damage property linked to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. They were found guilty following a trial at the Old Bailey in London. They are 22-year-old Ukrainian Roman Lavrinovich and 27-year-old Romanian Stanislav Karpuch. They've both been found guilty of plotting to damage property linked to the Prime Minister. Very interesting there. Right now, let's go to Jake Wallace-Simons. He's author of Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, and numerous other fantastic books. Very good afternoon to you, Jake.
Hello, good afternoon.
Sorry we're coming so late to you. There's been quite a lot to talk about today, as I'm sure you can understand. I want to talk to you about the Iran-US peace deal. I think Claire pointed out, I think we're on about the 38th claim from Donald Trump that there is some sort of deal. This time we've actually had the Pakistanis who are brokering this deal, very much dishonest brokers, I think we can say Pakistan acting, but saying that yes, there is a deal. Both Iran and the US saying there is a deal. We don't know the details of it yet, and it's not going to be signed, just a memorandum of understanding, until this coming Friday, which is a long way away in Middle Eastern terms. How sure are we that there is a deal, and what do you understand that it involves?
Well, the deal does seem to be closer than ever before. It's not over till it's over, I suppose. But given the desperation from Donald Trump to get that deal over the line, apparently, it does seem like it is more likely to happen than not, shall we say. But I think that this morning it was looking like an American humiliation, stopping the war without any of its objectives met. The nuclear issue wasn't resolved, the ballistic missile stockpile not resolved, support for proxies not resolved, the regime remains in power. So none of the objectives were hit. And of course, Iran poised to reconstitute its strength that it was deprived of over the war by sanctions relief. We expect that to be part of it as well. But now, within the last half an hour or an hour, the latest news line has turned an American humiliation, I think we can say, into an American defeat. The Iranian news agency Fars is reporting, hasn't been completely confirmed, but if true, it is disastrous. It's reporting that Iran will be allowed to charge a toll for shipping passing through the Straits of Hormuz and basically be given sovereignty over that international waterway. Now, on what legal basis the US can unilaterally hand sovereignty over to the Iranians?
I mean, this
and
is
the
an
Iranians,
incredible
actually?
precedent around the world, because that is not the normal state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, the US used to police international waterways to keep them international, but now handing it over to the enemy it's turned a humiliation, I'm afraid, into a defeat.
And also yet another money-making effort for the Iranians, and we know what they spend their money on: repressing their own people and building up a stockpile of weapons
And
to
overseas
fire.
proxies.
And
yeah,
overseas
I mean, and
proxies.
Donald Trump in his first term pulled out of Obama's deal, partly because the huge quantities of money from sanctions relief was funding building its overseas army, Hezbollah emitter in Iraq, in Yemen, even overseas terrorists in Britain. And now the same president who replaced that with maximum pressure is now going back, rolling back his own policies to give them money again.
And we're basically going to be in a worse position because they've absolutely got this control of the Strait of Hormuz. They know that the West basically crumbles as soon as the oil price goes up.
And China and Russia are taking detailed notes.
Brilliant. And this is probably going to be worse than the JPOC deal. Anyway, any deal with the Iranians say we're not going to develop enriched uranium, we're not going to do it. I mean, that's not worth the paper it's printed on, is it? Of course they're going to lie. Shocker.
Yeah. I think people don't realise what the Iranian regime is fully powered by. It's powered by a fanatical ideology. It believes that war with America and with Israel, all-out war and with the West, will produce an apocalyptic scenario that will cause a kind of messiah figure called the Mahdi to come out of invisibility and cause the end times of global Muslim domination, Shia Muslim domination. That's its reality. That's what it wants.
This is the thing people don't get.
Deal with that.
They're religious crazies, but they're not actually crazy. They're very clever. They're very wily, and that's the thing. Now, this is something that Netanyahu and most Israelis get, because they know that the number one target initially for Iran is Israel. They vowed to completely destroy Israel. Blatant, open anti-Semitism. There's no question at all. Netanyahu is not officially party to this deal as yet. Hezbollah certainly isn't, and we've got this pressure on Netanyahu to stop firing into Lebanon, which of course he doesn't do randomly. It's because Hezbollah has been firing at Israel repeatedly since 2023 and many years before that. But the likelihood, if Hezbollah carries on attacking, Israel will have no choice but to return fire.
It's been very interesting, actually, because the Iranians have, again, managed to pull the wool over Donald Trump's eyes very successfully in getting him to allow them to include Hezbollah in this deal. So this is thought to include a ceasefire imposed upon Israel and Hezbollah, preventing Israel from acting in its own national security interest in Lebanon for fear of upsetting the Americans. But the interesting thing is that if you look at the way the negotiations have been going over the past few weeks, whenever it's reached a sensitive phase, Hezbollah has fired at Israel, provoking Israel to respond, upsetting Donald Trump. And he's used the most atrocious language about his supposed ally, Benjamin Netanyahu, calling him an effing crazy and having no effing judgment and so on, because the Iranians are orchestrating things to drive a wedge between those two allies. And so Hezbollah attacked Israeli civilians last night. When Israel is forced to respond, how will that go down with Donald Trump? It looks likely he'll begin blaming Israel and actually supporting the Iranians to get the deal over the line. So whichever way you cut it, this is utter incompetence from the White House and a disaster for Israel, the West and the world.
Absolutely. Can I just ask you about Palestine Action as well? While we've been on air, the Home Office has won its appeal at the Court of Appeal, challenging a ruling over the banning of Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation. They'd appealed this ban and the prescription of the organisation. They'd won. The Home Office appealed. They have now won. And so it is a proscribed organisation. This, of course, after we had the sentencing, a lot of outcry from the likes of the Zach Polanskis and others over the sentencing of 4 Palestine Action, they say protesters, criminals, what they are, the criminal action that they undertook, including the smashing down of a wooden mallet on a woman police officer's back, breaking her bone in her back. They've been convicted. They've been sentenced after a second trial. What do you make of that ban? Is that the right thing? Is that the right way to handle Palestine Action? And do you think those sentences were justified, given that they were sentenced as terrorists, even though we've seen one jury being very open, saying we weren't aware they would be sentenced on that basis?
Yeah, I mean, the appeal, the Home Office's appeal has been upheld today, saying that they can now be labelled terrorists under law. I've got mixed feelings about that, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got no love lost for Palestine Action and want them to see the full force of the law as a deterrent to stop other people from doing what they've been doing. Sabotaging Bryce Norton RAF base, like you said, breaking a policewoman's back with a sledgehammer. These are not nice people. No. But calling them terrorists, labelling terrorists alongside ISIS, alongside Al-Qaeda, alongside beheaders, head choppers and suicide bombers, only turned them into martyrs and made the other side, as it were, feel like they had something genuine to argue about. And the irony of all this was that Lord Wolney, the former government's former counter-extremism czar under the Tories, produced a counter-proposal which was creating a new bar, which was a category of a criminal protest organisation that would have allowed the government to counter these people for what they are, which is a criminal protest organisation. Yes, terror adjacent, but not beheading and suicide bombing. There's something slightly different.
Exactly. It's like the labelling of far right. You need to be very clear of what you're labelling, otherwise it loses its meaning. Always good to talk to you, Jake Wallace-Simons. Thank you very much. Claire Pissell, just your reaction to that.
I think the bit that I can't quite get my head around is when you're looking at the Iran situation, how badly the American president has handled this. He went into something with no plan whatsoever. We're going to end up with something that is going to be worse off, with the toll booth essentially being set up on the Straits of Hormuz, and that money isn't going to go to any good, as you say.
Absolutely. 12:48 time. We're going to take a quick break. Just a reminder that 2 men, one a Romanian and one a Ukrainian, have been found guilty of plotting to damage property linked to the Prime Minister, his car, his former family home and his former flat in Islington, all targeted in May last year. Prosecutors said the arson attacks were planned and directed by a contact of the 2 men known only as L Money. Promised to pay £3,000 in cryptocurrency to one of the men, 22-year-old Ukrainian Roman Larinovich. Stanislav Karpic, a 27-year-old Romanian. He had a short-lived modelling career. Hence a lot of the rumours you'll see on the internet, said he'd been drinking in a pub in Notting Hill at the time of the attacks, but he was found guilty. Fascinating case, that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot coming out in the media tomorrow on that one. Up next, though, we are going to be talking about the extraordinary situation where white people are being blocked from job seeker schemes. I kid you not. Maybe Nigel Farage is right, when he says that this is two-tier Britain that is anti-white. We'll talk about that with Taxpayer Alliance. It was William Yarwood. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:51 is the time. Well, Nigel Farage has taken a lot of criticism in the last 24 hours because he said that we live in two-tier Britain, not just over policing, but actually a whole system that is anti-white in terms of whites being given not equal advantage with people of other ethnic groups, but actually a disadvantage. Well, that's rather obvious when you look at a story that's in the papers today showing that white job seekers are being shut out of taxpayer-funded employment schemes. A range of employment support schemes offered by local authorities to benefit claimants are open only to ethnic minorities. I mean, this is an example, clearly, of two-tier Britain, and it's been identified by the Taxpayers Alliance, who join us right now. Good afternoon to you, William.
Good afternoon, Julia.
William Yarwood, your campaigns director at Taxpayers Alliance. I mean, you know, benefits scheme, try and get people off benefits to get them into work, that's a good idea. On what basis should those schemes only be available to people who've got darker skin rather than whiter skin? I can't think of any justification for that.
Yeah, neither can I, Julia. Look, I mean, job seeker schemes, whatever you might think of them, you know, they're taxpayer funded, of course, but it's better paying taxpayer money to try and get people into work than actually have them on welfare, and that can reduce the welfare bill over time. And look, we've got over 1 million young people unemployed in this country, and yet these schemes ran by local authorities, such as in Sheffield by Labour ran and Green ran local authorities, are making sure that job seeker schemes can only be accessed by people of black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds. Now, I'll be quite strong on this, as I was in the Telegraph when I gave this quote. This is a prime example of two-tier Britain, and actually I think a prime example of anti-white racism, quite honest with you, Julia.
I don't know how else you could call it. If it was a scheme that was only available to white people, we'd call it racism.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, I'd be calling it out if it was the other way around, and I'm sure you would as well.
100%.
But the reason, the justification for this, Julia, is first of all, this is legal under equalities law. Just sit yourself with that. This is legal under equalities law. How on earth is this promoting equality at all? It's not. But the other reason they say they're doing these type of schemes is because black or ethnic minority people are more likely to be unemployed or out of work. I believe 8.8% of BAME individuals in the United Kingdom are out of work.
I don't think we're allowed to say BAME anymore. I always thought it was rather strange because people.
I can't keep up with all the woke jargon.
No one can keep up with it, mate. But again, because this is the interesting thing, lumping in people who've got black skin, people who've got brown skin, assuming everyone's the same, when in fact the rates of unemployment are completely different. If you're black, if you're from a Afro-Caribbean family, or if you're from a West African family, or if you're from India, or if you're from Bangladesh or Pakistan, the rates of unemployment are completely different. Indeed, some of those groups have a much higher rate of employment and indeed pay than many white people in this country. This is the thing, it's about levelling up, we're told, but actually we know that the kids who are doing the worst actually overall are white working class kids.
Yeah, absolutely, and yet there doesn't seem to be any schemes out there for them. I know other councils do indeed not discriminate on the basis of race, but the fact that we're seeing two councils being allowed to discriminate on the basis of race, and it being legal under equality law, should send alarm bells ringing in everybody's ears.
But we have, wait a minute, but we have lots and lots of, there are loads of training schemes, and we spoke to a caller earlier who was talking about he's white, his wife is black, they've got mixed race children, and their kids were able to get a load of grants for both for university and various schemes. There are numerous training schemes. I remember I had a boyfriend at university, and he went on a training scheme at an ad agency, and he had applied for a training scheme at the BBC at the time. We're going way back when, 1990 here, and I'm pretty sure these things still exist, where it was open only to ethnic minorities. He'd gone to a posh boarding school. I'd gone to a comp, but apparently he was somehow disadvantaged by the colour of his skin. I mean, he absolutely wasn't, I can assure you of that. But this is the thing. This isn't about equality. It's about this, again, this DEI idea. People think the E stands for equality. It doesn't. It stands for equity, and that's equality of outcome as opposed to equality of opportunity. And that's when it becomes unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the perverse starting point for all of this comes from intersectional ideology, which basically says that the reason you can't be, racist against white people is because racism for them as a definition is power versus privilege. And therefore, all white people have power and all white people have privilege, and therefore you can't be racist against them. You tell that to a working class lad growing up in a council estate. You tell that to a struggling single mother with 2 kids living in a big city. These people do not have power or privilege and should be looked after and should be cared for. for, and yet it seems that local authorities are more interested in virtue signalling in many ways, and indeed pursuing this two-tier anti-white ideology, which I think should be ripped out. I mean, like I said earlier, Julia, I'm in favour of taxpayer-funded job seeker schemes as long as they're well costed and they're helping people off the welfare state. But if they're not, if they're embedding in this two-tier anti-white ideology, all this money should be ripped out until they remove all these exemptions.
Well, exactly. I mean, again, I'm not in favour of even extra projects for women. I'm used to it. I'm going to point this out for those who aren't watching, because this is a scheme about basically the colour of someone's skin. As a white man with ginger hair, I don't know if there are any schemes for you.
No, I know. Well, luckily, the Taxpayers Alliance has kept me in employment, so I don't think I'll be unemployed anytime soon, considering the way this country's going.
There is that. Keep up the good work. We love you guys at Taxpayers Alliance. I mean, literally just pointing out so much stuff which people need to know is going on. I think most people just have no idea of how much their money is being spent on and wasted on this absolute nonsense. We want to get young people back into work, or into work in the first job. I couldn't care less whether they're black, brown, white, blue, green, red. I want them in work. William Yarwood, thank you so much from the Taxpayers Alliance. Claire Pearsall, listening to that, I mean, it's just outrageous, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you shouldn't have schemes for any kind of demographic. There shouldn't be a job seekers scheme for black and ethnic minority candidates, and nor should there be one for women only either. It should just be, if you need a job, the government will help you. That's what I want my money to go for. The people that we want to be in work
the best candidate.
Absolutely.
Fraser Nelson, he was editor of The Spectator, he's now at The Times, and they had a brilliant scheme for their new trainees, and it was completely blind. You had to write an essay on something, and they didn't want to know your name, where you went to school, didn't even want to know your age. They're not interested in any of that. It was an aptitude test, and you were given a certain amount of time, whatever they had to do, but it was completely based on merit. So they would hire people in their 50s, they'd hire, an 18-year-old, some from privilege, some from not, but it was based on merit. But everyone knew they were there on merit.
But surely, isn't that just what we want, the right person to do the job? I mean, obviously...
Don't be silly.
This is what we have in this studio right now, the correct people doing
Well, you say that. It was that case until a minute ago when I had to try and keep a straight face while Ian Collins crawled on the floor below the camera so he could get...
Getting back up again,
I know, I'm saying, I did see you struggle there. Is this a merit-based job?
No.